Welcome back, folks, to this week. Today we have two guests, special guests, who are going to be debating the woke right. We have Jordan Henry, and they both asked me, Jordan Henry and Emilio Martinez, and they both asked me to read from their profiles written by Antifa. So here's Jordan's. It says, since moving to Glendale in 2021, Jordan Henry has established a pattern. He directs attacks by outside extremists and far-right movement against the Glendale community, mainly targeting Glendale's award-winning public school district. He regularly makes public comment and does costly public records act requests. This is so poorly written. It's like on January 6, 2023, over 100 peaceful parents and local community supporters showed up.
June 6th. June 6th.
June 6th. Is that what I said?
I think you said January.
January 6th.
Oh, yeah.
The other J6.
Yeah, that's
the other
J6.
Yeah,
I think you said January.
Glendale had its own J6.
Did I say J6?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
It's all running together. It's so many.
It was the other J6.
Yeah, it's the other J6.
It was the other J6. 100 peaceful parent and local community supporters showed up to support GUSD's long-established inclusive policies, which are mandated by multiple state and federal laws.
Not mandated.
Not
mandated. Continue.
Well, we can fact check as we go along. We can just. These parents and community members, including Dallas, LA, were met with extremist violence from a group of mostly men and outsiders, led by Jordan Henry on the bullhorn.
Mostly men.
Mostly men. That sounds scary. Men and outsiders. Who's an outsider? What's that?
No, man.
Okay.
Most people were from
Were they
Glendale.
trans? And
So they're saying you're
running.
not from the town?
Yeah. They say we're
Yeah, outsiders.
Interesting. Many are known far-right extremists from across the state with the history of targeting other California public school districts. Several, including Bryce Henson, are now under investigation for their ties to extremist groups like the Proud Boys. These extremists with no stake in Glendale public schools harassed local parents outside GUSD headquarters. They shouted homophobic slurs and threats. Among the few local anti-LGBTQ plus activists mobilized by Jordan Henry was a small group of right-wing Glendale parents activated during the 2020 anti-max, anti-vax liberate movement, including Anna Tarosian and Annetta
Kerpekian, but you don't have to get into all that. Yeah. This is about me.
Yeah,
God, he's like, this person's trying to tie you into the Proud Boys.
Yeah, they think I'm a Proud Boy.
You're a far-right Christian insurrectionist.
What's so funny is tonight I'm going to argue like with those people.
I know. He's kind of.
Like,
so
on their behalf,
Yeah.
I'm arguing against the conservative movement. These people are so stupid. They like literally didn't spend any time actually researching what I actually believe.
So let me get Emilio, then we'll get into all the fakeness around it. So J. Emilio Martinez, right-wing provocateur propagandist.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Good. Very good so far.
A filmmaker and perennial candidate for
I
political
ran
office.
once.
You ran once?
I ran once.
Well, that technically makes you perennial.
Perennial. No, you got to run twice, at least twice, to be a perennial candidate.
Are you planning on running?
No.
Oh, okay. Maybe
anyway,
you're predicting the future.
I'm sorry. I wasn't going to interrupt the bio. Just let the bio be.
Martinez is a frequent attendee of right-wing protests. He was photographed praying with Proud Boys at the downtown LA rally and later arrested at the anti-LGBTQ plus June 6th protest at GUSD.
That was the first time I met Emilio.
Yeah.
When he got arrested, he was on the ground getting arrested. I was like, "Who's that guy?"
The second J6.
The J6.
The second J6.
Yeah, he got arrested.
Well, you're a true patriot,
Yeah,
Emilio.
the second J6.
He appears linked to right-wing radio host California GOP regional vice chair David Hernandez. Why do they make they try to make people sound so evil? David is like one of the kindest, most soft-spoken people I've ever met.
One of the kindest BIPOCs I've ever met.
Right, yeah.
Can't forget that. As both appear at events together and are involved with Gen Z propaganda account 1080
180 shift.
180
Get it right.
shift.
At least get
Okay,
it right,
I'm
though.
sorry.
180 shift.
I added a few degrees to that. Podcast network Red Angeles. Martinez is the father of 180 Shift co-host, anti-abortionist activist Tara Martinez Fernandez. Wow.
Yeah.
You guys are bad. You're bad hombres.
Bad boys.
You're bad hombres.
I have URL envy though, because he's
got the URL.
He's
the real Jordan
he
Henry.
is the URL.
But now everything just forwards to GlendaleExtremists.com.
Yeah, that's what opened up when I searched that.
I don't even live in Glendale anymore.
You don't?
Oh, you don't? Oh, I'm sad
I
to hear
moved to
that.
Montrose.
Okay.
That's Glendale.
No, just I'm right across the street from Glendale, technically.
technically.
I think I'm still in the Glendale USD.
You definitely are.
Glendale
GUSD. No, you were right the first time. Glendale USD.
How do you guys
Yeah.
feel being honored by Antifa like that?
I don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. I think it's great.
It upsets me that it took so long for me to get on the website.
There you go.
Why
It was a little offensive. Like, what am I, chopped liver?
Why do you think it took you that so long? How long did it take
I
you?
worked really hard. I got arrested.
At, like, the peak,
I go and I
the peak
check
of the moment.
nothing.
How did
I
that
run for
arrest go?
Congress. Nothing. No.
How did that arrest go? What happened?
Oh, it was great. It was great. Everybody was yelling at me on both sides.
Why were they yelling at you?
So the fight, we were there. There were like 800 people in the parking lot at GUSD.
Wait, explain why the protest was happening in the first place. People can understand.
Oh, because Glendale has all the policies about not informing parents about their kids becoming trans.
Gotcha.
Or telling parents if there's like a boy or girl in the opposite gender's locker room, for instance. They just won't say anything. Or going on a field trip, won't tell anybody, you know?
No parental consent, basically.
Zero.
Encroaching on parental rights.
Yeah, and that's what they said like the mandate was. So, which is not a mandate at all. That's like beyond the law, which we know now with Sonia Shaw, like with Chino Valley, they established that. Anyway, we were protesting that. 800 people there, maybe a girl who was the Silver Lake Town Council.
Neighborhood council, right? She also ran for Congress. He ran for Congress.
George Pudlow.
Oh, they're trans.
Yeah, maybe a girl.
Maybe a girl. You can't tell.
He's non-binary, and I'm not sure. I think he has they them pronouns.
George Pudlow, his name.
Is it actually a he or a she?
It's
I'm
a
now
he.
confused.
It's George Pudlow.
George Pudlow.
But he's female presenting.
Yeah, as maybe a girl.
No,
Why
get
maybe?
it? Like,
No.
because maybe a girl. I don't know.
Look, no, he is non-binary
It's like
presenting.
Pat from SNL.
He's a drag queen.
He's non-binary.
Gotcha.
He's a
basically a drag queen.
non-binary drag queen.
He put out a post saying Antifa, come, like they're organizing to protest.
Yeah.
And so he literally put a call out saying Antifa. Like
Honest.
I believe it. I believe. Or no, he put out a post and then immediately after Antifa reposted it, like one of their accounts on Instagram. That's what happened.
Plus, they had some organized effort. There's a pastor that works with them.
A woke pastor
a woke
from
pastor.
Pasadena.
Pastor.
From Pasadena.
Yeah. He's the pastor at
when
he's
it
a
comes to
pastor
that,
at an
you can be like
Agabus
a
church.
pastor and be politically affiliated, especially with the left.
Yeah, that's true. Long story short, a fight broke out between an Antifa member who was later to have been found out to have been arrested for molesting a 14-year-old.
Nice. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Not convicted, but arrested for it. Anyway,
Good caliber of people.
so some like essentially Armenian dads and community members started fighting with these like 2 or 3 Antifa members, and then it just escalated and it blew up and there was a brawl. Did you see the footage on that? There was
I
like a
saw
massive
some of it,
street
yeah.
fight. And at that point, they shut down the school board meeting. The cops came in. They had cops from all over helping out, and they immediately cleared everybody off of school property. So
they called a riot.
800 people immediately had to evacuate the parking lot and go stand on the sidewalk, right on the other side of the line of the parking lot. Except Emilio. Except Emilio. He just refused to
go
off the parking lot.
So you chose to be arrested. It wasn't anything like crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I channeled my inner Rosa Parks and said, "What would Rosa Parks do?" I think she'd lay down here. She'd say, "No, I'm gonna."
It's
Do
true.
you feel
It's
like
true.
the message was sent?
You know what? I will say I'm not going to take credit for this, but it was harder for Antifa to shut down protests after that.
Interesting.
Yeah,
They didn't really come back up.
Yeah,
that,
they didn't.
to be
They
honest.
came back. They came back for that one march that they did downtown. But the police did a really
that's
good
right.
job of
That's
keeping Shiva Bagari got arrested at that one.
Yeah.
Shiva, she was on your show. She
Oh,
got
she was.
arrested at that one. And both of us, the charges just mysteriously disappeared after a while.
Interesting. So
Right,
they
yeah.
just dropped it.
Did you get official notice that they dropped it?
No,
Or did
I
nothing ever happen?
actually had to call them
Oh wow.
and chase them and say, hey, what's going on with my case? When do I
Yeah.
have to actually go to court? I don't want to. You guys are accusing me of a crime. Like, let's get it done here. And they were like, no, it's been handled. It's been handled. It's taken care of.
Because nothing
So
happened. So
they,
that's how we met.
that's how you met.
Yeah, that's how we
That's
met.
our-
Yeah, because I saw Jordan.
And it was love
he
at
had,
first
He had a
sight.
mega. It was. He had a megaphone, and he was telling people. He was actually telling people, "Do not take the bait from Antifa. Do not take
I
the
was
bait."
trying to stop the
Emilio
fight.
was like, "I'll do it."
It was no. I didn't. That was, and it was so
I'm
frustrating.
glad you pointed this out.
You took
Yeah.
a different
That
bait.
is
You took
exactly
a bait
what
to
happened.
be
No, I-
arrested to make a stand.
No, well, I didn't take the bait. Really, what happened was he was saying, "Don't take the bait. Don't take
Don't
the
fight.
bait. Don't fight.
don't
it."
fight, yes.
Because that's Antifa's
They
MO.
instigate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
That's
go,
the
they
whole thing.
instigate. At one point,
And then play victim.
no. Well, I saw it on January 6th. They mentioned that in my bio. They said I was praying over Proud Boys.
Yeah.
So no, there was a little January 6th protest down at LA City Hall. Antifa shows up, and it's their JV team.
Uh-huh.
So
They're JV.
yeah, so they were mainly just holding back, and then they go and they make trouble. They'll bump into people. They'll swap phones out of people's hands. They try to start a fight.
Yeah.
And so there was this lady that came across the street and was doing that, and then and then people were like starting to fight, and then somebody grabbed her to pull her away from somebody that she was in a physical altercation with, and then Antifa has a press corps that is embedded with them.
Mm-hmm.
They jump out.
Always.
It's so ridiculous.
They jump-
It's so organized, and it's so clear that it's more for the narrative than anything.
Exactly.
Anything actually, actionable that'll change society. It's more about like, how do you win the narrative? That's all.
That's all they care about. So exactly. So they took they take photos of the whole thing. So then they've sent out a press a release with the photo of that woman.
Mm-hmm.
She was a black woman with this big white guy had his
Oh my God, of
his
course.
arms around her,
Yeah.
pulling her back. He was actually pulling her back from her jumping on somebody. But the narrative was white people, Trump supporters attacking black citizens in downtown
Tiny little
LA.
black woman. Yeah.
Right. So it was like a mini J6. Of course, the real J6 blew up. And, that was the real narrative. But later that day, I got like a DM from somebody from my former life as a liberal. She was like, I saw you were at the J6 thing in downtown LA. Are you okay? I was like, what are you talking about? Like after I prayed not for the Proud Boys, but for Antifa, I got in my car
Drove
and
home.
went home.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and she was like, no, I saw the picture of the woman that they attacked, the black African American woman that they attacked. I said, I saw that woman. She was causing fights, right? And then, so that day, the other J6, the Glendale J6, I saw that they were doing, and so I said, oh, Jordan's on top of it. So I just said, well, sure enough, the Armenian dads, I love them, but they're kind of amateurs to the thing. That was the first time they were coming out.
Yeah.
They didn't realize. It's hard to tell an Armenian dad what to do, even if you have a megaphone. I'm
Yeah.
just be honest. And they weren't listening to Jordan. They took the bait.
They didn't
And
care.
then the cops shut the thing down. And then Antifa actually, the moment they called the riot, they cleared out. This is how I know the pastor was giving orders, because he gave orders to a guy that was in my face with a megaphone to clear out. And that guy
Very
left.
interesting.
popped up and disappeared. And they cleared out the entire
Wow.
their side of the parking lot.
Wow.
And then they said rolled out. And then all that was left were the conservative, the extremist parents or whoever that were standing up for, the kids and stuff. And I said, not today. They're not going to clear us out today.
It's interesting because the left is so unbelievably organized with all of these disruptive efforts, right? You don't just see it with Antifa, you see it online too. Like, I don't know if you guys saw this article a few months ago that came out, but there's this, I forget the name of it, Pirate Wires. They're out of San Francisco. They're like, conservatives associated with like Peter Thiel and stuff, and they did like a deep investigation into the Reddit communities and the Discord servers that leftists basically use to organize so they can manipulate the narrative online in not just Reddit, but like different places, right? They'll target certain YouTubers and downvote their videos and flood their comments to make it seem like nobody is, buying into whatever they're saying, right?
Well, I told you there's a church up in Pasadena. It's an Anglican church. Or Episcopalian. I can't remember which. But the pastor up there, he was there. I saw him giving orders to Antifa. And it was like weird. Why is Antifa, who hates everything Christian, taking orders from a guy with a little minister's
makes
collar?
Me wonder who's paying for all that stuff and how. I mean, they're all unemployed people.
They don't need much money to do what they do.
Yeah, they don't need that.
Don't need
Eric,
much.
the guy that got arrested, he's a pedophile. I saw him pacing because I got arrested, so I was in the holding cell with him. And
really?
Yeah. I got to have full view of him. He was just sitting there. First off, he was like sitting there in just his like gym shorts and his t-shirt because they had stripped him of all his like Antifa black bloc stuff. Mm-hmm. And he was just sitting there, and he kept just trying to get on the phone. Well, I know why, because he was the first one to get bailed out.
Oh, is that right?
So they have a bail fund
yeah,
too.
because there was an Armenian dad, and he was pacing his cell like he was going to have to explain everything to his wife, and then but Eric, he was just sitting there like patiently, like, okay, I've got the phone number, and they were to call, and then they let him out. And then it's hard when you're on a sex offender registry list, it's hard to get a job. But Antifa's always willing to hire you.
He bagged groceries at my local Vons.
Oh, he did?
Apparently.
Because to me, this is militia level organization, right? And they have a target. The target is to basically subvert American society and tear it apart and install a Marxist utopia, right?
And I think the woke right are doing the equal opposite.
Really?
Yeah.
So they're going towards capitalism.
Going towards capitalism?
No.
I
They're
mean, that's the
Marxists.
opposite.
They're Marxists.
Oh, they're Marxists?
No, I don't think they're necessarily Marxists. I think
we
they
define
would
woke, right?
I think they opportunistically will use the same strategy. Yeah, tactics.
Can we define woke right first? Because when Emilio first talked to me about this, I was like, I thought this was a meme. I didn't think it was like a serious thing.
It's a real thing.
It's a serious thing.
It's been around for, it's been around forever, but in its current incarnation since apparently 2022.
Can we just define what it is first, and maybe a few of like the
I'd love to.
I could actually do it pretty summarily, where the woke right, much like the woke left, are Marxists, collectivists, authoritarians, willing to use illiberal means to achieve their end, to have domination, control. I believe that the same thing is occurring on the right, and there are different versions of it, just like on the left. There are the enablers, there are the activists, the inner circle, outer circle, however you want to do it. That all occurs on the left too. And so like you could say like the Groypers, for instance, and I'm not giving an umbrella thing. I'm saying the Groypers in particular. They take on the same tactics like you were saying. They have discords where they immediately will, be like, hey, go attack this guy, particularly like James Lindsay, for example.
Yeah.
They will do that and have done that. It's pretty obvious. And Nick Fuentes puts out those alerts all the time. That's the most extreme or an extreme version of what's going on. But on the right, it comes up a little more nuanced in a lot of ways, which we're going to get into. But to give you like one clear definition, which is what you asked for: authoritarianism, illiberalism on the right.
Gotcha.
I could say it like that: collectivism on the right.
And that collectivism is pointing towards what specifically? Because on the left, it's very obvious they want to go towards communism,
right?
And
identity politics.
On the right, you think there's also an aspect of identity with it?
Yeah, white Christian. A big part of it is Catholic. A big part of it. I'm not damning all Catholics or Catholicism in general.
I'm Catholic. I'm taking it as a fence right now.
Francoism.
You're woke, right?
Fisticuffs.
Franco. You look like Franco.
Franco?
Yeah, you
Who's
could pass.
Franco?
You can pass for Franco.
Who's Franco?
Francisco Franco.
Francisco Franco.
I have no idea what that is.
Military dictat of Spain.
Oh, Spain? Oh, Generalissimo Franco.
Yes, there you go. General Franco. So that having an identity, a nationalist identity around a religious worldview, which is illiberal, to have that directly inserted into the political main vein. You know, like this is weird because Franco did install Christianity, Catholicism specifically, as part of his nationalist agenda. It was explicitly done so.
Most fascist governments didn't Mussolini.
You can't really call him a fascist per se, but you can call him a Catholic nationalist.
I mean, but isn't fascist like the opposite end of communism, where it's like if it were the horseshoe, it would be the complete opposite, total state control. But so the woke right essentially is pointing at fascism.
Yeah, national socialism.
Yeah, like national socialist.
But it's more like it was theocratic national socialism.
It comes up as theocracy. It comes up as white identity. It comes up as male. It comes up as, just pure economic sovereignty, almost like a libertarian utopia, things like this, in a lot of different ways. Similar on the left. You have the economic Marxists. You have the identitarian. You have the queer gender theories,
Yeah.
Different factions. You have the pro-Palestinian. Like, why would you be pro-Palestinian and also pro-LGBTQ? That doesn't make any sense.
Pro-Israel on the right.
Yeah. So, but we don't. I mean, I guess we could touch on Israel. I kind of really want to avoid as much Jew and Israel conflation as possible.
Have they paid you off?
But we will absolutely do it because it's tangential. It's not even about the thing. Like the left.
I mean,
the left. The issue is never the issue. The issue is simply a means to infiltrate, corrupt, and gain the power. It's secondary. The issue is never the issue.
It ties into what you said a lot. I mean, we kind of end up having to talk about Jews because you mentioned Nick Fuentes, and that's a big part of his whole thing.
That's a big part of it.
It comes down to identity politics in a weird way.
100%.
Right? And a lot of his attacks are aimed at Jews.
Yes.
And on the opposite side of the coin, you have Ben Shapiro, who
this is pro-Israel.
Pro-Israel. He talks about identity politics too, but it boils down to his identity as a Jewish man is almost his. I don't want to bring up the dual loyalty thing already 5 minutes in, but I think it's
a fair issue. I think it's a fair issue to discuss dual loyalty or having multiple passports. I think that's a fair issue to discuss, but again, it's secondary to what we're talking about.
Cool.
I think that's just a feature of it.
Yeah.
And I would say it's secondary, except James Lindsay
says it's primary.
Says it's kind of primary.
It is a typical feature, but it's not necessarily that. And I will show you
that, but the
derivations.
Yeah,
that is my goal tonight, is to show you a comprehensive overview and how it manifests in different ways.
All right, so Jordan has a bunch of videos. You want to start with the videos then? Or
we could.
Can I add to his definition a little bit?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, he needs to do it too.
Okay, because I'm actually going to quote loosely from James Lindsay, Dr. James Lindsay, from what's the name of his website? New Discourses.
New Discourses.
What's he a doctor
of? Mathematics. Yeah.
Interesting.
So James Lindsay, Dr. James Lindsay, he was asked for a definition on the Bryce Eddy show, I believe it was. And he said simply, there is a powerful they, right? So like Jews, globalists, elites. So he did mention the Jews who have conspired against people like you. Through that oppression, you gain insight. And again, he's defining the belief system of the worldview of the woke right, right? So there's a powerful they who have conspired against people like you, through that oppression, you gain insight. Therefore, the people in the out group, which is your group, have to band together to overthrow the system and seize back the means of production or power.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, which is that's where it goes full Marxism.
Yeah.
I mean, that's straight up just Marxist philosophy.
It's fascist. What he's talking about is fascist.
So the state...
Yeah, well, he's talking about, he's talking
about woke right.
No, James Lindsay says that maybe they're fascist, but it's what defines them is the fact that they are defined by a Marxist worldview
Yes.
that is based in systems of oppression where there's the oppressed, there's the oppressor, then there are these power systems, and in order to achieve justice, the oppressed need to overthrow the oppressed and take power.
Oppressor, yeah.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
it's just a horseshoe. You end up in the same side with both of them. They're basically the same.
Yeah, and they're going to continually fight, which is why Jesus is awesome. That was my point. Jesus is awesome, and
Which Jesus?
Yeah,
I'm teasing. I'm just teasing. I'm a provocateur.
But you mentioned earlier about Jim Jones.
Yeah.
And how he thought Jesus was, because I mentioned Pope Francis thinking that Jesus was sociologically a communist.
Right, yeah.
Right.
The meme Jesus was a socialist that they keep throwing
it's
in
like
Christians'
liberation
faces.
theology.
Yeah, liberation theology.
Paulo Freire. There's another Brazilian.
Paulo Freire, yeah.
Yeah.
What?
There's another Brazilian. My friend Dennis here is Brazilian.
Yes.
Yeah, do you know Paulo Freire?
Yes, I know of him.
Of course.
Jordan
he was kicked out by the military coup. They kicked out a bunch of Marxists, including him. He had to flee to Chile, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the whole story specifically, but
yeah,
Brazil goes through a cycle every 20 years where some form of authoritarian government comes in and takes over everything, and
then another form will come in.
Yeah.
So right now you're in a leftist.
Well, it's been a cycle of leftists.
Yeah.
Brazil had like a very brief respite of that with Bolsonaro. It went to I wouldn't even call Bolsonaro right. He's just like a moderate.
Yeah.
He's just like common sense moderate. And he came in, they tried to kill him. They stabbed him. And then
he's still getting surgeries for it.
He's still getting surgeries. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why, and the left will always fight the right and the right will fight the left, and they both want it.
Yeah.
The extremes want that to occur.
Right. But you mentioned Jim Jones.
Yeah. Jim
also
Jones
used to say Jesus is a socialist.
Yeah, I don't know if that's like an exact Jim Jones quote, but he was a Marxist.
No, but that's basically
Angela Davis supported him outright. She called down to Guyana during the whole event.
Interesting.
She was making contact with them along with remind me on the mayor's name of San Francisco. No, of San Francisco at the time.
Not Harvey.
Billy
no.
Brown.
Oh, Billy. Oh,
is it Billy Brown?
Yeah,
is it Billy Brown?
No. Brown. Yeah. Willie Brown.
Willie Brown. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he supported him. Up until after the fact.
Well, Jim Jones was actually doing a lot of social gospel type work up there.
Yeah,
I think that's
he's
part
from
of
Indiana, by the way.
He is.
Yep.
Interesting. I think that's part of where his ministry started getting some traction. He was genuinely doing some good for the community.
No, but here, time out. He never had a ministry.
He never had a ministry.
No, he was a full on socialist, Marxist from day one.
He had a ministry in Indiana.
What he
was
did
too
was
radical there.
he initially, his goal there with what is it called, the People's Church?
People's Church,
was to actually co-opt the Christian framework to instill a Marxist government. So he was never a Christian. He was always a Marxist.
And I'll say this too: had he not done the Kool-Aid,
yeah. You think he would have been successful?
I think he would have been a favored historical figure for civil rights in America.
Interesting. You see that model kind of being repeated in a lot of churches that put their leftist or their political beliefs ahead of the teachings of Christ. I mean, I just saw a video yesterday of this female pastor wearing the pride flag around her neck.
Yeah,
that's the ornament that she wears over her robe is the pride flag. I mean, to not realize the contradiction, the sin God hates the most.
Yeah.
Pride. You're literally wearing that around your neck like it's yoke.
Yeah.
A yoke that has to be broken. Anyway, I'm getting off track.
No.
But it's exactly right.
I don't think you are, because the disagreement that I think that Jordan and I have, which is indicative of the bigger disagreement that's out there, like say between Matt Walsh and James Lindsay, is a connection between Marxism and Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that Jesus was a socialist is a meme that kind of
wait. How does that apply
comes
to
out of the whole the whole.
Are there people on the right who believe that?
That what?
That Jesus was a socialist?
No, that's what they're being accused of. So like when they say like one of the memes that supposedly the woke right is using as a struggle session or whatever is the Christ is King meme.
Oh, right.
Christ is
right.
King, Christ is King, right?
Yeah.
That what they're being accused of is saying something similar to Jesus is a socialist.
Gotcha.
That's
the
so
inverse
to me,
parallel. It's the inverse parallel.
right?
Of it,
Yeah. So that to me is like where woke right is not a real thing and is not really addressing the problems that James Lindsay says he thinks he's addressing.
Yeah, and I think Christ is King. We could talk about it. It's a dialectical device similar to Black Lives Matter.
I don't think
Similar
it's.
to
I don't
Black
think
Lives
it's.
Matter.
It's similar to Black Lives
Because
Matter.
you can't disagree with Christ is King. A liberal can't disagree with Black Lives Matter.
No, but that's the thing is
But
that
it's a not, I don't want to say weaponized. You could say weaponized. It's a tool being used to create division because they know that it will piss off certain people. They know that it will do that, and even. I mean, that's essentially my point, that it is a weaponized tool where you can't disagree with the statement.
So
And you have to be either an atheist or like intellectually detached in order to like weigh Christ as King having any sort of double meaning, let alone a nefarious one.
right, but the woke right label is also. This is another problem I have with the whole James Lindsay thing is. He's become hypocritical in the fact that he is becoming the very thing he says he's fighting against, and the fact that all you have to say to somebody is woke right. So it's like if a woke right person says to you, "You are Jewish," you can just turn around and go, "You are woke right," and then you'll be purged.
Wasn't he on the left before?
Who?
James?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was technically woke before. He just woke on the other side.
No,
he actually never was
He
woke.
was never woke.
No,
he was just a liberal.
He was a liberal.
He was just a liberal.
He was an atheist liberal.
Which you could say, I think, has features of wokeism in it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's
I disagree with.
Well, no, I agree
liberalism?
with that.
Liberalism.
Right.
I don't think liberalism is woke at all.
No,
I am a liberal.
I think it has features of wokeism in it because that's actually a corruption of Christianity.
Liberalism?
When
Liberalism?
you take Christianity and you start like that's inherent in say the basic frameworks that our founding fathers came up with. They were coming from a Christian worldview, so they came up with these frameworks.
Most were.
Like the Constitution, right? Yeah. So even a guy like Thomas Jefferson, who wasn't really an Orthodox Christian, but he still gave lip service to Christianity.
They all thought that God had a greater hand in everything.
Right, and he had, he had like a creator kind of thing that was still coming from Christianity because in Buddhism there is no creator.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. In atheism there is no creator.
No,
right?
liberalism is not the thing that corrupted Christianity. I wouldn't argue that.
No,
at
I
all.
don't think it corrupted Christianity. Because I don't think Christianity can be corrupted.
There you go.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So I think what it
So
is
what
is
did you say then?
that I'm saying that liberalism has a sense of wokeness in it because it is corrupted. It has corrupted Christianity. It's like it's like when you take Thomas Jefferson's gospel.
Mm-hmm. He wrote a gospel?
No, he didn't. He added to the gospel.
Yeah, he added the Bible.
Right. He took a
I
Bible.
haven't read it.
He took out. I haven't read the thing either. I won't because I've already read the Bible.
Yeah.
And all to read his Bible, all I have to do is go read the Bible, but take out all the miraculous things.
Oh,
See,
so he
all
took out
the
the
things that
miracles?
the Enlightenment would say, well, that's not scientifically possible. Like a 6-day creation or Jesus rising from the dead or anything like that. That sounds like that's
so silly.
Okay, but let's get back to wokeness, liberalism,
right,
and
right.
Christianity.
So if you take his version of the Bible, you take out all the miracles, you take out all the time that God's talking to people, you're left with a social gospel basically that says feed the poor, take care of the poor, the oppressed are bad. I mean, the oppressed are good, the oppressors are bad. The oppressors will eventually be free. The oppressed will eventually be freed. You'll have all that,
Yeah,
and
but did
then
he
that
take
goes
out-
into woke it. See that? So, but
Did he take out the part of like the story of the parable of the talents? Did he do that because that wasn't a miracle and it taught about money? and you having to like return on your investment.
Right,
You know what
but
I mean?
the
It doesn't do that.
right, there's a materialist world
What
here.
I'm saying, I mean, are you saying that Thomas Jefferson was kind of woke?
I'm saying actually that Thomas Jefferson is kind of woke. That's where Democrat. No, he is the great
He did have a
grandfather.
relationship with a black woman.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
He did.
Did he have like? Does he have grandchildren? He had grandchildren and children who were black, mixed race.
He did.
Thomas Jefferson is not woke. I have to say. No, because
he's meta woke.
The entire
no. He's pre woke.
Back to my definition, which I think is accurate, is the entire. This all centers around the individual, and if you want to collectivize as an individual, you can. Nothing's going to stop you in a free, open, liberal society. But nevertheless, you're an individual. Woke is collectivist. Woke is authoritarian collectivism, whether it's right or left.
No, that's
Jefferson-
Marxism, which has infiltrated
Fascism
woke.
is collectivism.
But
Far-right collectivism.
But postmodernism is actually part of wokeness as well.
Sure, I'm not even. That's yes. I
And
agree.
postmodernism is not inherently collectivist.
But these a lot of these guys on the right call them, like Carl Benjamin, who we were talking about before we went on. He calls himself a postmodernist. He calls himself a postmodernist.
Really?
Yes.
How can he have this
100%.
he has? I'm not questioning it. I'm just like I'm thinking of the contradiction of him being, because he has some pretty, I would say, conservative opinions, right? He's like anti-feminism, and how can you be postmodernist and have that seems like such a contradiction. It wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, well, the whole point, their whole criticism of the woke left is that they've taken over the institutions and they've objectified subjectivism. They put the person's perspective right in the middle of this group mentality, and that defines the entire sort of ontological or understanding of their consciousness. And they corrupted the institutions from within by doing so. And so what he's saying is like, well, fuck it. The institutions are corrupt. You guys fucked this whole thing over. And now we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to do the exact same thing you did, but from our traditional, conservative, Eurocentric, illiberal, which is illiberal, old world hierarchical mentality. I'm not even disagreeing with a lot of those things for your own personal life. 100%. Go have your hierarchical right-wing Christian sect where you embrace that completely. Go have your communist enclave. Go ahead and do that. You can do that in a free society. And I'm supporting both of those things. Just keep it out of the fucking government.
So I keep coming back to this, but it just seems like it always they point to each other. Basically,
it's the same thing.
They end up being the same thing. Just
That
reflections.
woke right,
woke
left.
Well, not even woke right, woke left. Like what you just described ends up being the opposite of Marxism, but such an opposite where it's basically the same thing, but a different version of it with different values.
Right.
Yeah.
So James Lindsay is basically saying that the woke right is kind of a historical outcome of Nazism, or it's a historical. It's in the same ontological stream of Nazism.
So,
right.
So
it's
the end
getting
goal
there.
is Nazism.
Yeah,
It's getting there.
and that's the threat. That's the
Nazism,
threat.
Nazism
That's
is
the
just
threat.
one element of this. It's just one type. We should play some clips.
Let's play some clips. Yeah.
Let's be historically honest. Is there anything Franco did that we should be aware, that the audience should be aware of, that wasn't great?
Look, Charlie, Franco was fighting a war, and he fought a civil war the same way that Sherman fought a civil war. It was brutal.
You marched to the sea?
It was. There were multiple marches to the sea. It was.
And he was ultimately successful?
And he was ultimately
so
successful.
Explain to me why Spain is so communist socialist now. What happened?
So Franco, who is famously, when you really look into it, he's not really ideological at all. He actually kind of hated politics. He just wanted things to be run well, and he wanted to restore the king.
Which is incredibly political.
Which is very political. But yeah, he hated the parties. He hated all politics. He wanted his church, and he wanted the king on the throne, and he wanted Spain to be the way that it was, and he did what it took to get there at the end. He didn't care for anyone to be on the right or the left. He just didn't care.
Okay, so you just showed the clip.
I just showed the clip.
Charlie Kirk.
Jack discussing with Charlie Kirk his book Unhumans. Have you read Unhumans?
No.
Okay.
Have you read it?
Yeah.
You read it? Yeah.
I have it. I didn't read it cover to cover, but I've definitely read through it.
You've read through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you explain what it is for people?
Unhumans. He's talking about, mind you, this is a Christian calling communists.
He's Catholic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Calling communists unhuman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to present that. I would never,
I mean,
a Christian.
What's the context? Is it like they're anti-human or
No,
they're
unhuman.
They're unhuman.
Or inhuman?
Unhuman. And
UN.
I would just say this is a pretty, UN. I would say this is a pretty explicit dehumanization of an entire, you could say it's a certain percentage of the United States. Let's
But
just
he's
put it in
saying that
context.
Marxists are unhuman.
Yeah, Marxists are unhuman. And so that book, they track history of Marxist uprisals and then the successful parties, in this case Franco, that overthrew them. And he's saying in the book, it says we need like a strong man. We basically need like an actor in history to. I have the quote on my phone, but he includes Franco. We need someone like Franco to step up and fight the good fight, essentially. But what he just said in that video is very misleading. Maybe before I say what I think about what he said, what's your just that one clip that you saw without me really getting into it more? What do you think?
Well, it sounds like he was talking more about that will, having the will to execute that Franco had.
Yes.
Which is why I supported Donald Trump over all the other candidates, because I saw that he had a will to execute.
Absolutely. He had a will to execute, but what he ended up executing, well, he talked about Sherman. Just like Sherman, no different than fighting our Civil War with Sherman, with the march
Right.
to the sea, right? Except all that occurred during the war. What Franco did was, after the war, he continued to imprison his political enemies, even moderates. He continued to do mass killings, mass burials, mass graves. You can look it up online. I mean, all of this stuff is becoming
Yeah, but he just
undocumented.
mentioned the parts that were like Sherman, because Sherman.
No.
Sherman's campaign
He
to the
intentionally-
sea was also very damaging. To a lot of people died. You know, watch
Key here.
Watch Gone with the Wind.
During the war,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
but during
Franco-
war, it's not good either.
I'm not saying it is.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, well, you were fighting against slavery. Yeah,
no,
sure.
but my
you can-
point is, Franco continued to do this for decades.
Yeah, but he didn't.
I think the last.
he
Of
didn't
course,
say
he didn't
that.
say that. That's lying by omission.
No, he just said one part of it.
Charlie Kirk asked him,
Yeah,
"Let's have a true historical account here, Jack."
right.
Jack says,
Of Franco.
he fought the war just like Sherman did. Not true. An absolute lie. He did not fight the war just like Sherman did. He continued the war well into his tenure. Well into his tenure. After the war was done.
After the war was over.
And
Mass killings.
What was
The most illiberal thing you could possibly do.
What was it? Was there a justification around it, or was it just straight up to hold on to power?
No, I
Hold on to
assume
power.
he was.
he
was,
held on to power for like 4 decades.
Yeah, for a decade. He was trying to stabilize, Spain from becoming a communist nation.
He was
basically.
he was-
I mean,
he was
technically
basically
failed,
like.
I guess.
No, he
Yeah,
was.
that's right.
Yeah,
that's
he
right.
was. He was.
And that's the point.
He
That's
was
actually,
fascist light.
That's actually
Right. That's what he was. He wasn't. He wasn't as. He was like on Team Hitler, Team Mussolini, but he didn't join because he wouldn't go to the extremes. Right.
He just supplied them.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah, he did.
Spain.
He supplied them with men, and he supplied them with I don't know about weapons, but definitely like war goods, materials. Oh, for sure.
Right. And then when he
Mussolini and Hitler, I believe, helped transport him during the war at one point. I mean, it's pretty akin. He also instituted Catholicism as the national religion. Obviously, it's Spain. It's a different context. Again, illiberal. He became a military ruler. This is the Constitution in the United States is a liberal document. So if you're going to argue, if
See, I disagree that it's a liberal document. I believe it is a Christian worldview document, primarily.
I think that it's heavily influenced by it, but it is certainly a liberal document. You were talking about
there's a liberal framework, but
it is a liberal
ideologically, it
but-
comes
but-
from it's a Christian doctrine.
But
I'm
no,
not
but
gonna
that
disagree with you
I
on
said
that.
is a modern liberal context like that, or worldview rather, comes from a Christian worldview.
Yeah,
That's like saying-
the idea of God
but
given rights.
it starts
I'm not
corrupting once you take God out of it.
God is in the founding documents,
Exactly.
and it is about your creator.
Right.
It's not about the state's creator.
Absolutely.
It is not about the state's creator.
Right.
You agree?
Absolutely. That's why I would label myself a Christian nationalist, is for all the statements you're making.
I don't
Oh,
understand
you're
that.
gonna get back on that Antifa site.
I will say that Franco
They're gonna write another bio for you.
Franco created Catholic nationalism. He
Yeah.
instituted Catholic nationalism.
Yes, I know. I grew up around that. I was a little kid when he was on, and Saturday Night Live actually was always making fun of him. He was one of their first punching bags that they always made fun of.
Just to clarify, too, France has had Catholicism as their national religion forever, too.
The Vatican has their religion
Is
as
Catholicism actually in their founding documents?
I mean,
that they institutionalized Catholicism in the state?
I don't know
it's
in
not.
that sense, but I can tell you that there's a
Because that's what
specific-
happened with Franco.
Like America is based on common law, right?
Yeah.
The law that's based on a lot of like European countries, even Brazil, I forget what it's called, but it's based on Catholicism. It's based on
right. So why I will say that
Civil law.
liberalism
What is
came.
the word?
I forget what it's called.
Okay, so I will say freedom of religion is actually came out of a Christian worldview.
Yes.
It would seem that it wouldn't,
Well,
because
Jesus
like
says it himself. You have the option to walk with me or just do whatever.
Freedom of religion. Exactly.
freedom of religion
Yes.
would come out of that.
Yes.
But it's not going to come out of a liberal worldview.
Freedom of religion is inherently liberal.
A liberal in the
Wait, are you saying
liberal,
that Jesus was liberal then? 'Cause
No,
he's
I'm
the one
saying
that
that
said
liberalism
he said
allows
Jesus
you.
is liberal.
Liberalism
Jesus
allows
is-
you to worship any god that you want.
Well, that's a Christian concept.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. Jesus said it himself.
No. This is the concept. This is
Jesus.
the,
What's the exact quote that Jesus says? That
well,
was it in Matthew that he says like you can walk with me or basically be damned or
Yes,
whatever it is.
he gives people free will.
yeah,
but
he gives people free will, or at least they have some kind of free will, blah, blah, blah. Without getting into the theology of it. What you have to realize is that a lot of freedom, our sense of freedom of religion, came out of all the wars that happened in Christian Europe during the 1600s and the 1700s. Right,
Yes.
yeah, where
Well,
Catholics,
I don't think
French
and those
Catholics were
things
killing French
that came out of
Right.
Christianity too.
But I don't think those
that came out of Christianity, but what
I don't think those wars are representative of Christianity. They're just
That's right. It created a
states weaponizing Christianity so they can have a justification to fight these wars and expand their territory.
No,
Yeah,
but
that's
no,
exactly
no,
what I'm
no.
arguing
but
against.
there were actual theological arguments behind it. It was like with the Lutherans,
there is no
the
justification.
Lutherans and the church.
There's no
They were
theological
having
argument that would ever justify a
Circle
war,
back.
especially
No,
when you're
well,
talking about
we're
Jesus.
going- we're going too far. We're going too far off.
Hold on. No, because this is my point. Is that that cognitive dissonance? That why would these Christians go and kill? Like millions of people died in Europe over a religious argument, and then many refugees came to the United States. Catholics, Huguenots, Quakers,
Yeah, it was
Universalists,
Catholics and
they,
the Protestants basically
right,
fighting
or they
off
came
out.
not to the United States, they came to America. And
Yeah.
that's why there is this sense of freedom of religion, where you have the Amish who were persecuted in Europe. They came over here and now they had freedom.
Okay.
And so, because there was a cognitive dissonance that if you are in brotherhood with your Christians and Christians aren't supposed to murder, why are they murdering each other? And it was like, well, maybe we can deal with this pluralism thing where you just kind of go to your church and I'll go to my church and we'll let God figure it out. And
Well,
then
I
that gets
don't
put
know.
into the
So that's
Constitution.
so that
That's a
comes.
Christian idea.
I think
Is it a Christian idea or is it just a practical idea?
No,
over
it's
time?
it's a Christian idea because
They
it's
realized
like,
they were being hypocrites.
yes.
So you're saying
they
so you
realize
were
they're
saying-
being hypocrites and saying like, I disagree with you, but I'm
Okay.
not going to kill you.
So you're saying that the Constitution is liberal and it's good because it's Christian.
No, I'm saying the Constitution is fundamentally, it comes out of a Christian worldview, and and so a liberal worldview comes out of that. But once the liberal worldview moves away from Christianity, it corrupts.
The
And then
liberal
it becomes wokeism and postmodernism and Marxism. That's what I'm saying.
the liberal worldview, yes, it shares components of Christianity, but earlier you said that you're saying that the Constitution is not a liberal document.
It is a liberal document because in Christianity, inherent is a liberalism.
Well, liberalism
Okay,
can't exist
so
without Christian doctrine.
That's why you can say Jesus is a socialist
So
and
you're
not sound
agreeing with the
100%
Constitution,
crazy.
or are you agreeing with
No,
the
no, I
Constitution?
love the Constitution.
The one that Jefferson wrote, the one that
Jefferson
corrupts,
did not write the Constitution.
The
He
one that
actually
Jefferson
had problems with the Constitution.
The one, they all had issues.
Yeah,
with it.
yeah.
But the one that Jefferson contributed to.
No, he didn't contribute much to it. He contributed some ideas and a lot of criticism. It was Alexander Hamilton, John Jay, and James Madison that came up. They were like the main framers, and then George Washington was the main advocate who brought everybody together. Right, which is why they made him president.
Okay,
I mean, this is a very simplistic
So these deists
view.
and these Christians created a document that is it's a liberal philosophical document which stems from Christianity, which you support, but then you're also saying that that liberalism itself, which America created in like a real state, a real, actually applied document, that it corrupted Christianity.
Yeah, because it's like
But
this.
you support it.
No, think of it as a house. Christianity is a foundation. Liberalism is like a floor that's built on top of it. Once you start scraping the foundation out of it, liberalism falls over.
Yeah,
Sure,
I mean,
yeah.
I agree.
In fact,
Look,
you can't have freedom of religion
we're
if
getting
you don't
kinda-
have religion.
We're getting kind of caught up in this, not talking about the woke right.
Yeah, no,
But
this is inherent to the
actually-
woke right.
Yeah.
I do agree with one thing you said. It's a good metaphor of liberalism being built on top of Christianity. I think one thing's evident for me. Christianity can't exist without liberalism existing, even as
Very
a
true.
concept.
Very true.
Liberalism can't exist without Christianity existing.
Very true.
So, I would say a lot of what we take, at least as modern liberalism, some of it is just secularized Christian doctrine.
Yeah.
That's just been adapted into you take out the Christian part of it, but you accept everything else.
I don't disagree. However, it does allow for other religions to practice privately and freely.
Right, but
that's also Christian.
But
But this is kind of one of the problems.
That's the point.
This is one of the problems in the
why
woke
is Jack
right.
Posobiec? Why is Jack Posobiec pushing a
Authoritarian.
character
Yeah.
who instituted a nationalized state religion explicitly, and then did all the things that he did, the human atrocities, the most anti-Christian thing? I have one more Jack clip.
Okay, yeah. Let's see the other Jack one.
They've all been kicked out. They've all been exiled. But then, and Trotsky, by the way, ends up all the way back in Canada. So he's like out in North America. That's how far they threw him out. He later, as we know, ends up in Mexico as well.
Dies in Mexico City.
Dies in
Gets
Mexico, assassinated with an ice pick by Stalin. You see, there's always this interesting thing, Charlie, that once the communists take over, the first thing they start killing are the other communists that don't exactly support
But how
their
many
way.
how many people were involved in the 17 Revolution?
There. What did you hear?
He was saying that Trotsky, communists, Marxists, when they get into power, they start getting into another power dynamic.
So you're
Exactly.
saying it's contradictory because that's what Franco did.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's pretty.
I
I
mean-
don't really have to argue much here, right?
I mean, look, it's
All right, maybe. All right,
back-
explain
it's
it
back
to
to
me.
the-
Explain it to me like I'm 5
It's
now.
back to the
'Cause
horseshoe
I'm-
thing.
Maybe
It's
I'm
the
not-
horseshoe
I'm-
thing.
fascists do the same thing Marxists do,
Yeah.
and it's just they ultimately it's just old.
The
No,
commies
no, but
are the
he said-
unhumans. The commies are the unhumans.
commies are the-
and when we act unhuman, well, we have the church.
Well, see,
That's what he's saying.
a lot of
With Frank, okay, he's
There-
saying that
Yeah.
Frank. Okay,
But he's ignoring
but no, I
it. He's
think-
actually
okay,
again
all right.
lying by omission. It's very crafty. Jack's a smart motherfucker. He really is, dude. That's a very manipulative tactic. Charlie set him up just for that. And it shocks me that Charlie doesn't push anymore. In another portion of this interview, Charlie's like, I don't know much about Franco, to be honest. Tell me about it. It's like, okay, thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.
I'll trust you on everything else now, bud. I do like Charlie Kirk.
Okay, all right.
Don't get me wrong.
I'm gonna
I like
play,
Charlie Kirk.
okay,
I even like Jack Posobiec.
I don't have the full.
So-
I don't
No,
have.
you
the,
should watch it, but
Okay.
he's not hiding anything.
me-
There's nothing contextual about that that would
So-
make you think anything differently. What he is saying is that, I'm going to ignore I'm going to hold up Franco as the ideal candidate, the ideal solution for what we need with the woke left. That's the prescription. But we're going to ignore all the atrocities he did after the war.
So let me see if I understood.
All the illiberal shit.
Let me see if I understood. Basically, on one side you have the woke left, which uses, the morality of like, saving the victim or whatever, all the stuff we know they use. That's what justifies whatever authoritarian push they're doing. On the right, it's Catholicism in this sense, or religion.
Religion, yeah.
So, okay.
It's just a different identity. It's a number of...
It reverts back to identity politics.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I think to understand it the best, you look at Fuentes. You look at Fuentes. If you really want to understand it, just go listen to like 10 minutes of Fuentes.
You think Fuentes is woke right?
The definition.
Like the definition of woke right was like
so
invented
woke right is real.
with Nick Fuentes in mind, but it's that definition does not apply to Nick Fuentes.
Okay, now
I've actually watched Nick Fuentes a lot.
Now, wait.
I've actually watched hours of Nick Fuentes.
Before we keep going, I do want to. There is one aspect of the woke left that is a behavior that happens a lot that I kind of just popped into my head that in order to be woke, the right would have to do this, which is a constant purity testing and complete cancellation and evisceration of the person's life for the sake of proving that purity.
It happens to James Lindsay every day.
No, but James Lindsay does it. He's got his woke right purity tests
he just
all
mocks
the time.
People.
But I mean, is this
what he
Who's
mocks?
he trying
No. This is like what happened with him and Matt Walsh this week.
Hold on, this has to happen at scale. With the left, it happened at scale.
Yeah, go look on Twitter. You'll get thousands of.
But I'm talking about specific movements. Like you have Me Too with the left.
Right.
You have Me Too.
Okay.
You
All right.
have,
Okay.
They
got the
like
institutions.
You have BLM. BLM's a part of it.
Hold on,
they got the institutions.
You're actually dipping into Marxist waters, because what you're pointing it out is that in order for you to be effective at cancellation, you need institutional power.
Yep.
So, for instance, Hollywood has institutional power and can cancel someone like Gina Carone and take her off of a big show, right? But if somebody gets canceled on a small little level, like somebody in Nick Fuentes' circle gets
or
canceled,
Nick Fuentes himself, which he is.
Right, or Nick Fuentes has gotten canceled. Right, he's gotten canceled by institutional power, but Nick Fuentes does not have the institutional power to actually cancel anybody. There's nobody is uninvited
He can just get on his feed and be like, everybody, James Lindsay sucks. Go attack James Lindsay.
But James Lindsay's not getting canceled. He's not getting kicked off of Twitter.
He's lost some shit.
That kind of weaponizing of somebody's community on the internet has been happening even before we had these definitions of woke, whatever.
Yeah.
I think
But
it's
it's
just
a feature.
common.
It's an inherent
It is a feature.
Yeah.
It's something that happens.
It's also human nature.
It is.
Right, exactly. Just watch one episode of Twilight Zone.
I don't see that.
You'll see, yeah.
I don't see that level of purity testing at scale on the right.
Yeah, what's happening?
It would have. I mean, it would have to come, like, you'd have to see, like, for example, like Brett Baer be ousted. What's the guy at ABC who got like destroyed? The bald guy at ABC, or was it
I
NBC?
don't watch woke.
You know the guy I'm talking about.
We don't watch.
It was a few years ago. He got Me Too. He was like,
oh no, Matt Lauer? No, not Matt.
No,
Lauer.
it was like a bald dude who did interviews.
Who did interviews? I haven't watched
ABC,
Network
on the
Network
morning
ABC.
show. Well, he's one of the guys who got canceled. I mean, it was like, they went after every
the institutions do it.
Yeah,
the right doesn't have the institutions.
I mean, the right has its own institutions that aren't within the mainstream. Right? You have people who
but the right, the woke right, the authoritarian right, the dissident right, whatever you want to call it, they want the institutions though. Or they want to destroy them and rebuild them up in their own form.
Right, that's what James Lindsay is accusing them of.
And that actually does fit with a lot of post-liberal philosophers. Like Patrick Deneen. Are you familiar with post-liberalism? This is another offshoot of the woke right. And it's like Patrick Deneen is a philosophy professor at Notre Dame. He's pretty established. J.D. Vance has explicitly said that he's influenced by him, and Deneen really does support J.D. Vance. Like, you can just go look at his X account. Deneen argues, he has a book called Regime Change, and in it, he's saying, liberalism failed. The project of liberalism failed. We need to basically invert the system by taking control of it, flipping the coin with the same tools. We need to get into those positions of power so we can bring back traditional values, smaller economy, more family based, obviously religious as like a central component, but like from an institutional perspective, that's what he wants to do.
I mean,
Patrick Deneen, post-liberalism, it's a rejection of liberalism.
So
outright
here's the thing.
rejection, which
That-
is the Constitution, which is collectivist. I'm almost done. Which is collectivist, not the Constitution, but post-liberalism is collectivist in that it's saying these are your traditions. The state is going to encourage these traditions. I'm not saying that the Christian ones aren't applicable. I try to live my life that way too, and I don't want the government to interfere with that, which is exactly why I don't want some power hungry authoritarian to come in and insert their own bastardized version of Catholicism or whatever. It's Protestantism probably in the US. I don't want any of it. I want the government to be completely out of my private life.
So that reminds me a lot of the strategy that the left itself used back in the 70s when they realized that the revolution failed, that they had to infiltrate the institutions so that they could have the impact that they wanted to have. And they were very successful at doing it.
Yeah, it was a genius move.
Yeah. That's how we got where we are today. It took them 25 years to do it.
And they followed.
They implemented all their ideology culturally, and that's how we got to the point where we're at.
Obviously, Marxism was a big influence, but probably the most important one was Antonio Gramsci. Familiar? The Italian Marxist who was imprisoned by
Antonio
Mussolini.
Gramsci.
Gramsci. Cultural Marxism, cultural hegemony.
Right.
And yeah, like the long march through the institutions, I think pretty much directly came out of that,
He-
along with postmodernism and the
Right.
Frankfurt School.
Right,
But
the Frankfurt
Gramsci
School,
was definitely
Mark
part
Hughes
of
and
that.
all that.
And I think that what they want to do, first of all, the only people who would do that are psychopaths on the left. People who are willing to lie and cheat and to like make their own bullshit hierarchy in academia where like, hey, I'm a DEI, whatever. And that to me is like you're creating your own like pyramid scheme basically, and you set the rules, and you're psychopathic enough to manipulate all the people around you just for sheer power, where you're accumulating. You can bring in all your buddies, you accumulate more resources. The only people who would do that are psychopaths. And if you're gonna present that as regime change, as Patrick Deneen, the Catholic philosopher at Notre Dame, wants to, and that J.D. Vance cites for some reason, if you're going to do that, the person who wants to do that is a psychopath.
So
there's no,
I understand your
can't
point.
do that.
My question is, how do you stop what's happening without doing that, without taking back the institutions?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question that I don't think I have the answers.
No,
I
exactly.
don't think I have all the
That's
answers
short of
to
a
it.
civil
no.
war.
That's the point I'm making.
Short of a civil war. I mean, how else do you go?
That's the point I'm making, is that Marxism is not a flawed system because it talks about power systems and power structures and oppressive.
It's a system of
That's
analysis.
in the Bible.
It's like
No.
it's like
No.
That's absolutely in the Bible.
No.
Read the book. That's what the Messiah is supposed to do, is to free
Every word
the
that
oppressed.
Marx said was a lie.
That's impossible.
Listen to me.
That's impossible.
Listen to me, man. Listen
he
to
said
me.
the sky's blue, that's
even
a lie.
Satan quotes the Bible.
That's
That
right.
is true.
He quotes not every word of Satan is a lie. In fact, you'll see he
Look, but
quotes
it's
the
all
Bible.
leading to a lie, my friend. It's
It
all
leads
leading
to a lie,
That's
which
exactly.
is
That's the
Marxism's
point.
problem.
But
and
that's
the number
point.
one lie of Marxism is that God does not exist.
Look,
There is no creator that gave us. It's like what I've come to believe, even about like the Declaration of Independence, is the one flaw that's in there is that your rights are not self-evident. They're not self-evident. Otherwise, everybody would know what the rights were. We wouldn't need a Supreme Court because the rights would be self-evident. He was arguing that rights were
that's-
self-evident, but he was saying it's because they came from a creator. It's self-evident that they came from a creator. That I'll go with. I'll go along with Thomas Jefferson on that one. Yes, those rights come from somewhere outside of this tangible world. Right, and what Marx did is he scraped that off. That's the same thing. The same thing with the French revolutionaries.
Exactly.
They
That's what I was going to say.
They sucked
But
God out of it.
That's been the cycle with intellectuals throughout time. Is they just readapt the Bible to their current context, the wisdom of the Bible, and then take credit for it. They strip God out of it. They say, "Oh, I came up with this brilliant idea." You go look at the book of Proverbs; it's all in there, or wherever else. So it's not new.
Listen, but the whole point of Marxism, or whatever we're talking about here, with whatever, if you want to call it like neo-fascism, if we're calling it neo-Marxism, let's call it neo-fascism for the sake of argument. The whole point is that they are going to use a kernel of truth and then insert an agenda, just like Marx did, just like Mussolini and Hitler did, insert an agenda in order to push their own, power agenda.
Yeah, but I could apply that to James Lindsay. He's taking a kernel of truth that there are people on the right that seem to have features of fascism, and therefore they're fascist. They're trying to take over the government, and they're a huge threat, and they're taking over MAGA, and they need to be purged.
No.
He's literally saying they need to be purged.
He has gained nothing from doing this, except like an interview on Jordan Peterson.
Nick Fuentes has gained nothing from being
Nick Fuentes
canceled.
is a millionaire.
James, that's not true that James Lindsay has not gained anything. His main supporter is a guy named Michael O'Fallon.
Yeah, what's wrong with Michael?
Well, he's gained Michael O'Fallon's favor. Michael O'Fallon basically...
He did that years ago.
He did that years ago, and he's maintained it. So the one thing he has not lost is Michael O'Fallon's favor.
Who's Michael O'Fallon?
He's a Christian nationalist, by the way.
He's not.
He's a self-acclaimed Christian nationalist.
No, I don't believe that's true at all. No, I think he's openly said that he's not.
No.
Michael O'Fallon is a contact of James Lindsay who actually helped him create new discourses.
That's his publication.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to ask Grok right now.
Sure, you can ask Michael O'Fallon. I don't think he is.
Is Michael
I'm almost certain he's not.
O'Fallon...
No, because he's
O'Fallon.
O'Fallon.
A Christian...
He's Irish?
He's American.
Nationalist. Yeah, he's actually kind of centered out of Colorado Springs, where I'm from.
Interesting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
No, he's...
should we do another clip?
Yeah, I'll soon.
Yeah. Here it is. Yeah, I mean, Grok says, Christian nationalism, yeah. I mean, let's see. It says, in a nutshell, the question of whether Michael O'Fallon is a Christian nationalist is complex and depends on how one defines the term.
Yeah.
Okay, so right there.
I mean,
see,
but like
Grok didn't say absolutely not.
I'll
He's
tell you
not
this:
a Christian
like,
nationalist.
I am a nationalist and a Christian,
right?
And you could lump them together. I don't care. You could call that Christian nationalism,
right? But according to James Lindsay. According to James Lindsay's thing, you could easily be woke.
No, but does that mean I want to institute Christianity into a governmental structure?
Into the institutions.
Yeah.
Do you want to institute?
Absolutely not.
You don't want to institute Christian values into.
I am a liberal. No, I absolutely do not.
Christian values
I want secular
do not
government
murder. You don't want do not murder to be
Christian values are already in the institutions.
Yeah, exactly. It's already in there.
Do not murder. Okay.
Like, what's an example of a Christian value that you absolutely do not want to be put into the government system?
Christian values are that's different.
Like, what's a Christian value that you don't want?
No, you're making. These are two different arguments. These are two different arguments. Christianity's been around for 2,000 years, and before that, Judaism. So everything. I mean, I just don't want. Okay, do you want Judaism to be in the government? Do you want Judaism? Do you want Judaism to be officially designated as the government religion?
No, I don't because Judaism is an ethnocentric religion, right?
No, I mean
absolutely it is. Orthodox Judaism is it's very legalistic.
That was
in my opinion. It has all these laws. So
there are multiple ethnicities within Judaism. I mean,
but that was, no, but there is
Ashkenazi.
But it's parallel.
Ethiopian.
It's like there's an ethnos and then there's a religion on top of that. That's straight from the Bible.
I mean, this is
And then kind
of what I'm arguing against.
But then there is like secular Judaism, which I would not want either because that's not Judaism.
But I'm just making a point. I'm not really talking about Judaism itself.
It's like Islam. Do you want Islam?
No, I don't want Sharia law.
You don't want Sharia law, right?
Yeah, that's why Owen Benjamin blocked me.
That's right. Owen Benjamin blocked you. Yes, that's right. You don't want Sharia law, but liberalism. What the contradiction in liberalism is that if a town decides that they want Sharia law, well, if they voted for it, they should have it.
So here,
Okay,
I-
no.
here, hold on.
Okay.
Let me just say one thing.
But I do want to go back to thou shalt not murder.
Yeah. Well, I don't.
I think that's an unfair argument.
I think a Christian theocracy is just impossible to have. A Christian government. Anybody who does create that, they're creating it against. They're purposely usurping Christianity so they can just expand their power. You just look at what Jesus said. Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Give unto God what is God. To me, that's not just separation of church and state. It's like you cannot have a state with Christianity being. You can have a state where the morality and the principles are based on Christianity, but you can't have a Christian state.
Yeah.
That's different with Islam. That's different with Judaism, which, like you said, it usually leads to an ethno state.
Is that different with Israel?
Well,
Israel is an ethno state.
I
man,
disagree.
see that's where it starts falling apart.
think you could
if America
make that
can't
argument,
be
but I don't.
Christian, if it can't be Christian like Israel is Jesus,
We were
is
just
Jewish.
talking about how part of Christianity is the ability to not be Christian. That's a central tenet to Christianity. That's freedom of religion is Christian.
That's right. It's the ability to. It's the right of conscience to go because
do you think
I will not kill you.
Should Christianity?
You go be a prodigal son. Figure out, and then ideally you will come home. That thing is not so. You can just believe whatever the heck you want, and I'll believe whatever the heck you want. That is not what freedom of religion is about.
Okay. Should Christianity be explicitly stated to be a state-sanctioned religion?
Should it?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it. I don't think it should be because Christianity, the term Christianity institutionally, is too complex.
Then why is Jack arguing for Franco?
Well,
and why is Charlie not saying a goddamn word about it?
I have a
because
there's a reason why he's doing it.
Okay, why? Why do you
for
think?
political gain? I mean, I think
that's evil. That's evil.
No, I agree with that. I think that some folks, when they get involved with politics, they use their religion or their beliefs or their principles as a means to an end.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly
ultimately what it is. Which
that's
is why
I would not. Okay, all right.
This is woke left, woke right. Yeah, I think you agree. I think we agree on that.
Of course, you know what? This is a typical Marxist move
no,
here.
This is liberal.
No,
this is
we
liberal.
agree. We agree,
Liberal.
comrade. Right?
I mean,
you are minority.
I said the horseshoe thing at the beginning.
He did.
It was the same
and
thing.
it's exactly right.
Right. That's.
I showed you.
No.
I showed you a mainstream
no.
example. I showed you
the
a
woke.
main.
All right. Let me just say this: the horseshoe argument is the image that James Lindsay wants you to have.
Yes.
It's the centrist.
I don't think James Lindsay came up with that. That's just
no. But he's utilizing it. That's a way to shut down conversation by saying
not.
people in the center are the same ones. Everybody on the edges is crazy. So you need to listen to people on the center, like me, James Lindsay. I happen to be in the center.
But is he in the center? Because he sounds like he's
he would
conservative
be.
now.
He's in the center of the Overton window. I'm not going to say that.
He's a liberal conservative.
He's a liberal conservative.
It sounds like such a paradox.
He's philosophically liberal. He's philosophically liberal, but he's conservative.
But he's not
in his political philosophy.
But he's not really. But he's not really conservative. I would say in some of the things that he says.
It's like cognitive dissonance to even think of it like that.
Because you could be a liberal. You could be a liberal lefty.
I could accept the libertarian on the conservative side. I don't know how you can be a liberal and be like I don't know how you can be.
It's not left or right. Liberal is not left or right. Liberal is both left and right.
I don't know how you can be.
Liberal is both left and right.
Here's an example.
Yes, liberal can be both left and right.
It is left and right.
Here's why I don't think that's possible.
It's by definition.
Well, you can't be. All right. Would we agree that conservatism is unique to the right?
Yeah. No.
Can you be a liberal?
No, I wouldn't say that
wouldn't,
because
say that.
if you're like a conservative Muslim in Iran, you want the mullahs to be, and you wouldn't say that. Well, that guy's a conservative.
I'm not talking about. Let's talk about America. I don't want to extrapolate to be on that.
Yeah.
I mean, look. Here's a central issue to liberals: gay rights. A lot of liberals believe that gay people should be able to get married. That's one example.
Right.
I don't think that plays with conservatives.
It does play with conservatives who are woke.
But the word, I think you're just getting lost in the word liberal, because liberal philosophy encompasses left and right, and
what's the difference between liberal and libertarian?
A lot.
Oh, huge. Yeah.
Well,
huge.
I'm saying
libertarianism is basically taking liberalism to like the most extreme.
Yeah.
Where it's like all
full
individual rights,
right, individualism.
complete small government,
Yeah.
decentralized. I mean, let's
small government is the opposite of what liberalism
right,
wants.
but liberal is not left. I'm not using the word.
Yeah,
I'm
liberal
not,
leftism, but it's
No, no, it's
no,
the
it allows left and right. It allows Trump to win. Liberalism allows liberalism as a philosophy, political philosophy,
I
not
agree.
as a
Look,
party.
look, we
not as
actually
a party.
agree on this one.
Lowercase liberalism. Lowercase.
Yeah,
liberalism.
lowercase liberalism.
Yeah, big idea.
Maybe my perspective has been poisoned
John
by years
Locke.
of politics.
No, like
John Locke.
you could describe.
I don't think that form of liberalism exists anymore.
It's still here. I'm right here.
No, it's there. He's saying that. He's saying he's here. Right.
I don't know. How can you exist in the political landscape?
Like I would never want to silence a queer, trans, black, lesbian artist from going and speaking at city council.
How about one speaking in front of kids?
Like
a drag queen.
there you go.
See?
No.
Woke right.
Hey, listen,
woke right.
listen, dude. Christianity doesn't allow drug abuse or to have like moderate alcohol, but the law allows you to go and get hammered. You know, this isn't like a Christian society.
The law doesn't allow you to just go get hammered.
Yes,
you could be arrested for public drunkenness.
I didn't say go out in public. What are you talking about? What I'm saying is that the laws are not Christian. Do you want Christian laws?
Yes, I want Christian laws.
Yeah,
the laws are Christian.
You might be woke right.
I know. That's what I told James Lindsay, but right before he blocked me. No,
but we can laugh about it. I don't think James Lindsay can laugh about it.
I don't think James Lindsay can laugh. No, and
he can, but not about this.
I don't think he can. I think that's actually the biggest problem with this whole woke right thing.
I kind of wish he could a little bit.
Is that James Lindsay can't laugh, and he lacks. But
we need
real good self-reflection on this issue.
We need someone who's just like, I don't care. I'm right. He's in his opinion, and I agree with him. He is right.
He's almost. You know what he reminds me of? He almost reminds me of a Franco figure.
He doesn't want power
on
at
his
all.
march to the sea.
He's not politically organizing at all. All he's doing he's just shit posting. That's all he's doing.
No. See, that's exactly what he's gonna do as a agitator. He's like pre-Franco.
He's not even shit posting. That's
he's
inaccurate.
like, he's basically writing Mein Kampf. 285
let's talk about Hitler.
Characters at a time.
Let's talk about Hitler.
Let's talk about Hitler.
Daryl Cooper?
Was Hitler woke right?
Daryl Cooper.
Okay, yeah, Hitler is as woke right as it gets.
Wait, Daryl Cooper is a
martyr
maid.
Right,
pure identity.
I only know people by their handles.
Yeah. But control the corporations. Massive war state.
Fascist,
obviously, we need.
Okay, so that's another. That's another aspect of the woke right. Is they question the World War II narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They question the World War II narrative. They say things like, maybe we shouldn't have dropped the 2 bombs on Japan. Did we need to do that? That's now considered woke right to ask that question. Or
I think it's
any kind of Holocaust
what's the
questioning.
arguments that people are making as far as to why we shouldn't have on the right?
I don't think a lot
killed a lot of people.
Tucker made the argument. Tucker said it was wrong.
And what are the arguments?
Hold on. Did you follow? I want to get back to Daryl Cooper. I'm sorry, but
go ahead.
Did you follow the whole Daryl Cooper fiasco with
Tucker?
No.
Do you know Martyr Maid?
No.
You should definitely be informed. He was on Rogan too recently,
Yeah.
which is what I'm going to play next.
Wait, is
Right.
It's not the guy who went there and confronted Rogan for.
Just play. All right, play. You got to play one of these clips. Just play one of these clips. It'll.
Can I
explain
play
it.
one more video, Jack?
Yeah.
I took a lot of crap last year for putting this book out about leftist violence and anti-communism and saying that I saw what I called the rise of the unhumans.
Yeah.
And every single mainstream outlet under the sun came at us and attacked me. You're fascist, you're crazy, you're calling for a return of Franco, and all these things that we didn't actually say in the book anywhere. Came on the show many times, talk about unhumans.
This is Jack's feed on Twitter.
Franco
Friday, Uncle Frank.
Oh my God.
Dude, just wait. I could have kept going, but I cut it off. Franco Friday.
That's
It's currently Franco Friday. Oh, dude, just wait. I speed up.
I mean, he's clearly pushing a narrative. That's why it's.
And then he went on Timcast after he got some heat internally, never publicly. I've never heard him criticized publicly for this. Never, not once. Dude, it just keeps going. He did this for like 2 years. Franco Friday.
I mean, that's clearly, that level of repetition is just it's propaganda. That's why.
Check it
Wait,
out.
hold on.
This is-
Dial it back. I don't know. Come on. The culture of
You gonna
Twitter
apologize for
and
Franco
X.
Friday? Franco Friday?
No,
No,
the
fuck,
culture
no.
of X.
This man is a Christian, and
Wait.
if he's just
Look,
playing into the culture,
Hold on,
he's
he's
lying.
he's a Catholic, so let's differentiate. I'm
If
just
we
that
don't-
was I just teasing you. Okay,
Look,
so
if
hold
we
on, hold on.
You get what I'm saying there, right? It's
I mean,
very
this
obvious,
is
right?
propaganda. There's no way around.
No. Come on. If he were okay,
There's
he's-
true propaganda and there's false propaganda. What he's doing is false
He's
propaganda.
obviously doing a comedy routine. Franco Friday.
Wait, whoa.
Come on, that's
Look,
just a
here,
comedy
let me-
routine.
You don't
just-
think he actually
He's
wants
shit posting.
You don't. Okay,
No,
after
he's
he wrote the book
shitposting.
saying,
So, let me-
after he wrote the book saying the prescription is Franco. The prescription
He just
is
said
Franco.
in the book. He said that Franco is not like the
He
literally
just
the
lied to
prescription.
you and you believed it. Have you read the
So
book?
here's the thing with
To be
Here's the
fair, I
thing
have
with
not read the book,
propaganda.
but I am going to go home
Here's the
and
thing-
have Grok read the
Go
book
ahead.
for
Here's the
me.
thing with propaganda: the more innocuous it is, the more it is for you the easier it is for you to dismiss. That
Right,
It's
so
actually
what's-
aimed at influencing you to think in a certain way.
So how is that different than woke right? Woke right is propaganda by that
Yeah.
definition.
I mean, most
because
political
no.
Most
Matt Walsh.
political speech nowadays is
Okay,
propaganda.
Matt Walsh.
Daily Wire is mostly
Matt
propaganda.
Walsh,
Most of these.
Matt Walsh got attacked online by all these people for posting a swastika image, right? And that he needed to denounce woke right. He needed to denounce the woke
Well,
right,
that's different
right?
from
And
posting.
no,
That's
it's
different
funny.
from posting
Hold on,
one
let-
image once versus having a consistent over the
No,
year.
no.
That's
Believe
I saw
me, one
24 and
swast-
23
one
there, so over
swastika-
a couple of years.
Yeah.
One
So that's-
swastika is enough.
Yeah, good
one,
eye.
First off, one swastika is enough. Why did he receive that much over one swastika? It was so confused. It's simply because all of the anti-woke right people came out and said, "You're woke right." It was
No,
like
that's-
Invasion
that's
of the
also
Body
the
Snatchers.
So the
Anti-woke
the
right.
the left can also weaponize speech that's used against your if there's any sort of infighting on the right, the left's going to jump on that and amplify it for their own means.
Yes.
So
That's what a guy did. He jumped in there. He's a Bernie bro that jumped in there, subtweeted basically a little Nazi, one of those little magic images that if you tweak
Yeah,
it like this.
I
Oh,
think I
hey,
saw
there's
that.
a
I think I
there's
saw
a
that.
swastika.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. You can go there, but he
Uh-huh.
reposts it right. So, and about an argument about these South Africans and whether it's racist
That was all like
to let
that
them in there.
was- Yeah.
And then everybody comes out and says Matt Walsh needs to disavow that. Matt Walsh
people
Walsh
on the
needs
right,
to
people on the right
Yeah.
said that.
Yes,
Yeah.
people on no one on the left came out and said that. Everybody on
Bunch did.
no, not on the right, in the middle.
Yeah.
You know what?
There's
There's
woke
woke
right.
right,
Should have
and
and then
apologized.
there's
I think
and
he
then
should have
there's woke
acknowledged
mid.
it.
It's a 6.
He
on
did
the,
acknowledge it, and James Lindsay did give him credit for
No,
acknowledging
he
it.
did not acknowledge
Bullshit.
it.
a lot
He said,
of-
"I'm proud of you."
Oh my gosh, James Lindsay is being like, what's that? Who's the character?
He literally said,
"Who's
"I'm
the
proud of
character
you."
in Guardians of the Galaxy?"
All right, I'm gonna-
that is not.
Hey,
Nothing goes
Word
over
for
my
word,
head.
I'm gonna read Unhumans, just a little excerpt.
Okay, you read
Yeah.
Unhumans.
How to defeat the Unhumans, find the great men of history. If the first way to fight the forces of unhumanity is nobody do anything, the second way is one person do everything. This is the gist. It is Francisco Franco during the Spanish Civil War. There you go. That's the beginning of his book. That's a direct quote from Jack
What page?
Poso.
Is it like first couple pages?
Yeah,
or-
first couple pages. So it's not a comedy routine. He walked it back on Timcast because he got heat privately, I'm sure. And he hasn't
mean-
deleted his fucking messages or his posts.
So here's the thing.
No,
Tommy, you don't.
okay. I don't know Jack. I don't know Jack.
That's woke, dude.
I've met him a few times. Right. I've
He's-
seen him.
He's
Creating
creating a Catholic. He's doing Fuentes Light.
No, but when I've heard him
That
speak,
I can agree with that.
He's doing
I'm
Fuentes Light.
Catholic. I can say that.
You're
You're
Catholic?
Catholic.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
Catholic.
are you a
Fuentes Light.
Catholic integralist?
What the
Integralist.
fuck is that?
Integralist. Yeah. Are
Yeah,
you
what is that?
integralist. Are you a Catholic integralist?
It's what I'm describing.
Disavow that right now.
No, it's
disavow.
what I'm describing.
Disavow.
It's
Disavow.
where you want the Catholic Church to be part of the government.
I just said that I think it's impossible
Yeah.
for there to be a true Christian government. I
Yeah.
think it goes against Christian doctrine.
I completely agree.
I think, and I also disagree with a lot of Catholicism currently. I think that the papacy is a political body.
Does your priest know that?
My priest, I think
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I think on the local level, the Catholic Church does some great things, but I think on the global scale, it's a political organization.
It's not like Hitler was going and giving big speeches at City Square in Berlin, going on and on and on about how we're going to kill the Jews. And the German people said, right on, like, let's go do it. That was like the speeches that are out there where he is talking about the Jewish question, like almost all of those are like internal Nazi party, like rally speeches, you know, they're not him. He had to be careful about that. Like in 1938, which is pretty far down the line when Kristallnacht happened. It was kind of a nationwide pogrom against the Jews in Germany that was launched primarily by Goebbels, the propaganda minister. But there was outrage in the German cities. People in Berlin, a lot of the places were outraged by what was going on. And Hitler had to actually get on the phone with Goebbels and say, cut this shit out. Like, this is not good. Like, not because he loves the Jews all of a sudden, obviously, but because this is bad propaganda.
Wenn es dem internationalen Finanzjudentum in und außerhalb Europas gelingen sollte, die Völker noch einmal in einen Weltkrieg zu stürzen, dann wird das Ergebnis nicht die Bolschewisierung der Erde und damit der Sieg des Judentums sein, sondern die Vernichtung der jüdischen Rasse in Europa.
Is that like the equivalent of their State of the Union?
I don't know exactly.
Okay, so wait. So what's your purpose in these two?
Well, he's proving how he's a hypocrite or a liar.
I think he's manipulating it. Yeah.
You think he's manipulating? He just said that Hitler did not say things publicly against Jews.
Yeah, I'm only showing
Kristallnacht in what, 1938, and you just told
this
me
is 1939. No, you're right. It came after.
So this is afterwards.
Yeah, I don't have another.
So now he's rolling out his.
There is
like,
no
Jew
video
thing.
of another speech he gave in, I believe, 1922. Mein Kampf is rattled with Jewish
like,
grievance.
Yeah.
The whole. I mean, have you read Mein Kampf?
Why would I waste my time reading Mein Kampf?
So you don't fall into a trap, my friend.
I read the Bible so I don't fall into a trap.
Hey, you got to know what these idiots say, these psychopaths. You have to understand what psychopaths say. You know.
I know what psychopaths say.
Yeah, and
I tested against the Bible.
And Hitler was clearly a psychopath. I think we all agree with this.
I think he
Correct.
he was a very disturbed individual.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Daryl Cooper just said that it wasn't known that the Nazis had an anti-Jew or an annihilation of the Jewish race agenda, right?
Right.
To answer the Jewish question. When that was always the case. They focused on other things. They focused on the economy. They focused on traditional values. They focused on the family. They focused on National Socialism, which was the antithesis, the horseshoe of international socialism or communism.
Right.
Right. But what Daryl Cooper just said was that it wasn't known, or they wanted to keep the propaganda down, but it was always public knowledge.
So my
There's
question
no doubt
is,
about it.
what's his end goal? What's his end goal with putting out something that's easily disprovable? Not even with your clip. I mean, there's so much evidence of the propaganda that the Nazis put out against the Jews. Why would he be out there putting this? Is he trying to soften Hitler's image or the Nazi image?
I don't want to answer that question, but I'll show you some things.
Yeah. Okay.
And these are just.
Oh, you think he's a Nazi?
Guten Morgen, fellas.
He's got Nazi memorabilia.
777, you know what that is? That's the answer to 666, meaning like they think that the Star of David is the Antichrist. 777 is the holy.
I mean, there's a whole aspect.
This guy, real Thomas, 77, straight up Nazi.
There's a whole side of Christianity that believes that Judaism is the church of Satan, because that's how it's spoken about in Revelation. So that's where it ties into.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
So people are now upset that I have a mug made by real 7 Thomas 777. I don't care. He's a friend. You don't get to tell me who I can be friends with. People think what they want as long as they treat people with decency, and he does. Polish Roy is a Stalinist. I don't know what that means.
As far as I know.
As far as I know, I'd buy this mug too. Okay. So he was getting pushback from the communists for posting
Here's
that?
another one.
What, he's mentioning the Stalinist guy because he was getting pushback from the communists for saying that, for posting that?
Okay, all right. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. I'm going to tell you, I saw some guy driving a VW down the street. And I don't know if you know what VW stands for. It's Volkswagen. It was invented by the Nazi Party to give everybody a car. It was like the Henry Ford. By the way, did you know that Henry Ford? Henry Ford.
Right?
No, did you know? Did you know that Henry Ford? Henry Ford. Get this. He also hated Jews during the 1930s.
Yeah.
This is one reason why the Nazis were kind of flying under the radar, because the level of anti-Jew propaganda that they were giving was just as prevalent here in the United States with guys like Henry Ford. Did you know that Franklin Roosevelt turned away a whole ship of Jewish refugees? And
So what's your point? Just say your point.
All right, here's my point. Is that you're reading a lot of stuff, and if you're saying that this guy is a Nazi because he's like, oh, he's got a 7-7
So he's just
cup.
memeing.
He doesn't.
I dated a girl.
He doesn't. He only posts Nazi merch. He doesn't post commie merch. He said he would, but he doesn't. Look, there's another one, Sig Heil, and that's a kid with a little SS shirt on.
Okay, all right, we're gonna talk about the elephant in the room.
What?
NHH, Kanye West.
Oh,
What about it?
no.
Yeah,
That's like
does that mean he's a Nazi?
Yeah, he says he is.
says it in the song.
How about Hogan's Heroes? Nazi?
What?
Hogan's
What's Hogan's
Heroes.
Heroes?
That funny sitcom from the 60s, you know? They
Because
had,
it starts with H's.
yeah, I mean, they had a character on there always saying, Heil Hitler, Heil Hitler.
Yeah, but it was. I mean, I don't know. I can't.
They were making.
Donald Duck does it in a Disney cartoon.
The producers.
You know what?
The producers Nazi.
Yeah, is the producers
No,
Nazi? Have
no,
you ever
look.
seen that Key and Peele?
Look,
Key and Peele sketch where he comes in.
Look.
Is
no
that his
irony.
daughter? Is
No.
that his daughter?
No, it's some Nazi merch. It's some
Oh
like
my
neo-Nazi
gosh!
merch. I
No,
swear to
this
God.
is all right. This is my problem. This is my problem with James Lindsay. He literally is applying all like the Jew fear. Like, do you know that the Jews are behind everything? But he's applying it to, you know, that the Nazis are behind everything.
Wait, hold on. Let me read that.
Do you know
tweet.
that the Nazis are behind everything?
Real Thomas 77. This is his post.
Let me read that.
What did
So
he
he
say?
posted, do people realize that AOC, why is she AOC? Is she, well, I don't understand that.
matter what he's saying there.
Is she like a second 1990s rapper? Would be considered mentally disabled? Was she in normal working environment and not in a beltway parasite? No, I'm not. I'm openly not. Jesus Christ.
He's openly a Nazi, dude. That's who we reposted. But he's a kind guy who would, help anyone out.
Okay, first off, Jordan.
I can't. That's so
All right,
small.
here.
I can't read
Here,
that.
I'll wait for you here for a
This
second.
may be
here.
pulling. This may be putting it too crudely for some, but the picture on the left was infinitely preferable in virtually every way than the one on the right. I mean, look,
Hardcore.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying.
He's just shitposting, right? Let's just say he's
The one-
shitposting.
Oh my
let's just
gosh.
say he's kidding around. Let's just say he's kidding around. Let's say
Yeah,
he's kidding
yeah.
around. He's having a few laughs. He had a few beers. Hitler's better than a bunch of trannies at the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Why should anybody take him seriously as an historian then? He claims to
that guy's a historian?
Yeah, Martyr Made. He
So,
puts out,
Yeah, he's a historian.
he's actually really good. He's really good. He had me for a while.
Well, he's a Nazi. How can he be good?
He's smart. He's what do you mean? He's really good. Nazis were really
You're
good.
complimenting a Nazi? So
Yeah,
I'm
you're
just-
complimenting a Nazi.
yeah. I'd compliment Hitler too because Hitler was a genius.
Oh,
Do you disagree?
I'm just,
Do you
I was
disagree?
teasing him.
I'm a liberal, and I think that
No,
Hitler,
I'll tell you, Hitler was kind of a great man.
he was a great man.
He was a great. No. Hitler was a great man. No. In the sense that he was just like a historical figure, right?
Yes, he
Which
was-
is going
yeah,
back
he
to your
was a
thing
great
about
his-
Jack Posobiec. I think that's what he's saying is that there is a person of will who is willing to do things, which
He put
is Donald
and
Trump.
Jack wrote down
and-
Hitler
and-
Light. Jack wrote down Hitler Light.
What do you mean he wrote Hitler Light?
He put down Franco in his book. He didn't write down Hitler, obviously.
Yeah, no, but okay. So you're saying
So I
Franco
I called
the
him
Nazis.
Hitler Light.
in that context, now I'm
You're saying
thinking that maybe he's choosing Franco because Franco is like more digestible than making that argument with Hitler.
I told you Saturday Night Live when I was just a kid.
Well,
they were
most
always
people
making
don't
fun
even-
of Franco.
I mean, but that's most people
Francisco Franco. They would not have made fun of Hitler while he was in power, killing Jews, right?
And also nowadays, pretty much everybody knows who Hitler is still.
Yeah.
Nobody knows who Franco is. As
Not
far
many
as
people
the
know.
Hey, let me
public
put it this
discourse.
People
way.
under the radar.
Let me
But-
put it this way.
but-
How many people has what's his name, Xiao Jinping killed in comparison to Francisco Franco?
They're all evil. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I mean, it does matter, obviously, but
well,
they're all
then
evil.
we're literally
Xi
we're
Jinping,
literally
or
doing
was it a different
business.
guy?
We're literally doing business
I think he
every
was
day
talking
with
about
Xiao
the previous-
Jinping. We have Hollywood. What's his name?
Xi Jinping.
Xi
Yeah,
Jinping.
he's got
Jinping.
people. He's got 200,000 people in a concentration camp.
He's got people in concentration camps. We do business with them.
Let me ask you a
Hollywood sucks up to this
Well,
guy.
Let
we
me
did
ask you a
business with
question.
the Nazis too.
If you're Daryl Cooper and you go on Tucker Carlson and you say that Churchill was the leading villain of World War II.
He said that.
Yeah.
All right, I think part.
If you
That's funny to me. I mean,
he didn't discredit Hitler for his atrocities, but he said that Churchill was
that's insane. That's
the main
objectively
villain
insane.
of World War II. The
That's-
main villain.
I mean, am I crazy here? That's
Tucker
objectively
called him,
insane.
listen. My point is Tucker called him one of the greatest historians currently. Joe Rogan had him on. Dave Smith talks to him all the time. You know Dave Smith?
Yeah, Dave's in the comic.
Yeah, the libertarian. He had him on. A lot of people have this guy on. He's gotten millions of subscribers since he went on Tucker and it caused that huge debacle.
Yeah, no, I know.
Millions, dude. Maybe not millions, but he's made a bunch of money.
Wait. So somebody said something provocative and then made a bunch of money? That
Listen.
sounds like a capitalist.
If
Anyway,
you're
go
going to
ahead.
weigh into history like he does and you want to be taken seriously as an historian without being called an anti-Semite, he doesn't want to be called an anti-Semite. He denies being an anti-Semite. Why would you post this shit? Why would you do that? Why would you just step into it?
Well, I will tell you this.
Just to troll?
Who are we talking
And then
about?
do we have to take
Who are we talking about
Then do
right
we
now?
have to take Daryl Cooper seriously as an historian when he just shit posts?
James Lindsay shit posts.
James Lindsay does shit post.
Should we take him seriously?
Yeah, he's not putting this out.
He's literally
Okay, we have
James
to-
Lindsay
he's
called
not
me.
putting this
hey,
shit
hey,
out.
Hey,
We have
James
to-
Lindsay called me a retard.
So I think
James
I
Lindsay
mean,
called
look,
me personally a retard.
Listen, we have to. Can you?
on
Can you?
X?
Can you?
On X?
on X, and
I-
then he
yeah, so
blocked
here's-
me.
wait,
I really wish he would just actually convert to Christianity.
Yeah, he should convert to Christianity.
So-
Right.
The question is.
I'm kidding,
Can you?
James.
Can you have? Can you have?
I'm not.
Can you
Call
have
me.
Can you have an online persona where you say things that may go against your principles and your beliefs and still be good at your profession?
Not if you want to be taken seriously and not be called an anti-Semite. And you post that.
Mhm.
Can't do it. You're gonna. What else do you do here?
I
What
mean,
do you
but
do with that?
does that solely apply to historians though?
No.
That applies across the board.
Yeah, I think so. If
So
Jordan
everybody's
Peterson
reputation-
starts posting like communist stuff, I'll be like, what the fuck?
I
are
mean,
you
he
doing?
posts-
Actually,
here's the
Jordan
thing.
Peterson gave a whole defense of why he has Soviet art in his home and not Nazi art. The Soviets were worse. In fact, I think that's what Martyr made. If I remember right with this whole thing, he was kind of saying Winston Churchill is the villain because afterwards, Stalin was a hero.
Stalin was never really a hero.
Yes, well, Stalin is a hero
To who?
To whom?
to the left, and because of that, they were able to have
It's not
that
because of
long march.
Churchill.
Huh?
No.
What
No,
segment
I
of
think
the left
Stalin is.
though?
I think
I don't see-
Stalinism
No, I'm
died.
not going to
Stalinism
blame
died.
Churchill because Churchill did his job, and then the English people
Yeah,
said,
well,
"We're
Daryl
done."
Cooper does. And Daryl Cooper is
Okay, but-
the leading historian currently because he's basically
In America or where?
Okay,
the leading historian of the woke right.
Or the woke right?
He's like a Buchananite. Pat Buchanan.
oh, you,
Yeah.
you remember
Yeah.
Pat Buchanan? He was woke right before the right was
Well,
woke.
he's a guy. He's a guy who came up with cultural Marxism. The phrasing of itself. I mean,
Yeah,
was
the culture
Italian,
war.
Was
Yeah.
I forget his
Gramsci.
name. Gramsci, who came up with the concept, but he coined the term cultural Marxism.
Yeah,
He named it.
Yeah.
yeah, Pat Buchanan. He was America.
I'm
he was
familiar.
like along that America first through line, right?
Yeah.
But that was like a central
was,
argument
a
he made.
paleoconservative.
was
No,
about-
I know
was about
James
Churchill.
Buchanan. I know, but James Buchanan. James Buchanan. James Lindsay is now, one of the things that he was doing recently was going like, oh, I guess the right woke is now rebranding itself as we're just really neo-Buchanans.
Yeah,
or
Jack
something.
Posobiec pushed that. Yeah.
Oh, Jack Posobiec pushed that.
Yeah.
That's, you know what? This sounds like a lot of personal beef.
No, I'm not.
No, at this point, I think this is personal
No, Jack
beef.
Posobiec stated it. I'm literally just saying what Jack Posobiec said, just like I did before.
Oh, okay, but to Jack Posobiec's point that you need a strong person to fight against socialism and against wokeism. That's what Winston Churchill was. Winston Churchill was a very strong
liberal.
He wasn't just a liberal. No, he was no.
What was he? What political philosophy?
No, he was considered more of an authoritarian.
During a war?
No, earlier in his career. He was responsible. He had a very bad reputation.
We're talking about World War II.
Right. They brought him in because they said, look, we need a real tough guy. This Winston Churchill, who's been sounding like a maniac, warning us about the Nazi threat.
So why
turns
didn't
out
Jack,
he's true.
So why didn't Jack talk about Winston Churchill? No, he talked about Franco.
Let's see. If you're trying to reach, say, Generation Z,
you're gonna pull up a figure.
Yeah, why would you
from
talk about
before World War II versus the one who was an ally during World War II? So you're gonna pull an older character.
I'm not in Jack Pozo's head, but I'm getting maybe he was trying to be strategic and creative in his argument.
He knew what he was
for a
doing.
strong
No, he
man.
left things out. Definitely, just like Daryl Cooper leaves things out.
Well, I know, but these guys do start a conversation that needs to be had.
No, but they're playing a game. I'm telling you.
Right, but the game they're playing is more of being a provocateur.
Then why should we take any of them seriously if they're just provoking? That is a leftist tactic.
Well,
no, it's not.
Yes, it is. Provocation is the leftist tactic.
Antifa called me a provocateur.
It's a dialectical.
Am I a leftist? I'm kidding. I had to give a self plug there.
I agree that it's a leftist tactic, but on the internet, it's pretty universally used because
it's universal.
The internet's pretty much an attention economy. So you have to be provocative in order to draw the attention to sell your books, to sell your tour, to get people to listen to your podcast.
That's what I'm saying about James Lindsay.
Everybody's fighting for market
share. He is a provocateur. He's a provocateur.
He's making a point.
But he's a provocateur. He did it with his whole Christian nationalism is a psyop.
It's the same thing as Christ is King being a dialectical tool.
Those are just marketing tools.
What do you mean?
It's McDonald's, they
James
say
Lindsay is marketing. Is that what you're saying?
James woke right is on some level it's a marketing tool.
He didn't come up with the term, but
no, but he's using it.
He's definitely using it. Yeah, but
because
he even says that it's not a good term.
I know, but the one that he came up with, Christian nationalism is a psyop. Well, first of all, that's a mouthful, and it's not to the point. Woke right, a whole lot simpler. That's a better slogan.
What's his logic around it being?
And he said it's not a good slogan, but it's the one we
Christian
have right
nationalism,
now.
what he was arguing for is that he doesn't want a theocratic state, which is exactly what I'm saying here. It's exactly what I was talking about with Franco.
But I don't know anybody on the right who is seriously arguing for a theocratic state. I don't know anybody.
Okay, I definitely think Jack is. I definitely think that Deneen guy who I brought up before is.
Catholic.
Both,
so here's
Fuentes is too, who's also Catholic.
Yeah.
But
Fuentes
he's
is a provocateur.
Here's a Catholic saying that on premise it's impossible, and these guys are doing it solely for attention because they know they can get attention and sell books. That's my take on it. So
that's a big part of it. The problem is
that's a pretty cynical point of view. I mean,
you have to be in order to be successful on the internet. You have to be pretty cynical.
No,
I disagree.
I agree with that to a certain extent, but I will say the more that I research James Lindsay, and he's not necessarily a guy that's going to play the provocateur game.
Research him personally, like his personal life? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, like stalking him and stuff.
No, is that what you're talking about though? What do you mean?
No. I'm just like trying
his
to get
ideas?
No. Trying to get more of like where does his money come from, that kind of thing.
You get paid for
Well,
speeches.
I don't care about any of that. I mean, like...
No, that's important because money affects what you say, right? If it's like, don't F with the money. right?
But this
Not necessarily. I mean, it
I don't-
depends on.
No.
It depends.
No. He's a guy that I'll give him the sense of the. I'll give him the
I'm
grace
just
that
saying
he has
because
integrity.
you said this is. It seems very personal, but now it's kind of like
What?
you're kind of blending that. You're
What
kind
do
of
you mean?
contradicting your
You're
argument.
saying he's an opportunist, basically.
I'm not saying he's a full-on opportunist. I am saying that in the marketplace of ideas, you have to practice a certain level of opportunism, like these other guys are. Otherwise, like you said, it's an attention economy.
He gets less Twitter traffic. He gets fewer speaking occasions. His work has gone down since then, so it's not working very well for him.
Well, no, but it's a risk that he's taken. So there is a business element. But I will say,
it hasn't.
You said it.
It's done the exact inverse of helping him with his business.
Okay, but
currently.
you said
right. Do you agree with that?
Do I agree with that?
Do you think James Lindsay's brand is up or down right now?
I think James Lindsay's brand is up, and I'll tell you why. Because we're talking about James Lindsay.
Yeah, but based on metrics alone.
No, the part of the metrics is that we're talking about him. In the attention economy, it's not just about likes and clicks. It's about people off the internet talking about you. And he's getting that. It's about people going like, hey, James.
Because he's right. Because he's right.
Okay, now to the point of you said that
Wait,
he's
can
just
I
in it for the...
understand why do you feel such a need to defend him?
James?
Yeah.
He's getting paid, obviously, by James. He's obviously on the payroll.
No, I agree with him. Here's my
ideological
personal reason why is because I had told you on the phone, I think.
Yeah, you were
I was like
right.
kind of falling into the woke right.
Mm-hmm.
I was becoming like, oh, this is all like, yeah, obviously there's like anti-white woke leftist culture, anti-Christian, anti-male. I got 3 white boys as kids, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna that shit pisses me off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want any of it. But then I also don't want anti-black. I don't want anti-anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just want a neutral government and a neutral society where culture is
You're at the middle of the bell curve.
Yeah, I just don't want any of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want any identity politics. I want individualism, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And if people choose to join groups, go for it. If you choose to be politically active, go for it. Just keep the illiberalism out of the Constitution.
And you think James Lindsay calling out the woke right, whatever you want to describe it as, is helping expose?
Yeah, and so he exposed that to me, and I was like, "What? Where am I going?" Like, because I listened to all of the Martyr Made podcasts, like every one of them. You know, he has one on Jim Jones, which is really good. I would definitely recommend it. I would recommend. Yeah,
the guy who memes about Nazis.
Yeah, really good. I told you I respect him. He has one called Fear and Loathing in Israel. I forget what, Fear and Loathing in the Middle East or something like that. But it's about Israel, Palestine, leading up to 1948.
I think I may have heard it because I think I heard maybe Dave Smith mentioned it in some interview. It's like a 5-part Israel thing.
Yeah, it's really long. It's like 30 hours.
Yeah, every part's like 2.5 hours. Yeah. Yeah, I think I heard the first
in the New Jerusalem, Fear and Loathing in the New Jerusalem.
Yeah, I think I heard the first couple episodes of that.
Yeah.
So here's my one. I had a question. So fuck, I forgot. Lost my train of thought.
That's cool. If you think of it, you know, the next thing Daryl Cooper is working on is a history of World War II from the German perspective.
I remembered.
Okay,
thank you. The German thing brought me back.
Yeah, what's your question?
So here's the thing, because the Nazi thing came up with this guy, right? The Martyr Made guy.
Yeah,
right.
He's doing a whole new series, 30-hour series on Nazis,
and if it discredits him or not, right? His posting about the memeing about Nazism. So right now, I mean, I think for the last 2 years or 2.5 years, in internet culture at least, it's become a lot more normalized. It's you can meme about Nazis, right? Yeah. Where like for 6-7 years you could basically not even say the word Nazi without being labeled a Nazi.
Yeah.
You couldn't post anything about Hitler without being labeled a Nazi. Having your entire, and not just that, your entire life would basically end publicly, right? And now we're kind of seeing the pendulum swing the other way. Even Kanye just made this song, even though the song got totally banned everywhere, right? So, I mean, do you think there's an aspect? Does the memeing You know, it goes back to the whole thing, like the separation of the internet presence versus the reputation of the person. But, you know, maybe he's playing into this cultural moment where you can meme, and perhaps he's using it as a way to drive attention to this new series he's making on World War II.
Yeah, you're right. No, absolutely, yeah.
You know, would that really challenge his reputation if he's just memeing and playing into the zeitgeist, right? Because right now it's more normalized. I mean, you could literally post a Hitler speech with a smiley face and people would think it's funny.
Yeah, it's disgusting. Yeah, he could be doing that. You know, I don't think he is. He comes across as really genuine.
Who Martyr made, right?
Martyr made, yeah, like a really down to earth guy. He DM'd me. I DM'd him. He came right back. It was really, I can't share what he said, but it's really interesting. I just feel bad like sharing a private message.
No, you don't have to.
But
share
it is like it is fascinating. And then
did you?
The other,
I mean, why not?
And then
ask
he would come back at me and call me like brother on the you know, he's trying to like.
Well, it's because you're white. You're white Aryan. He saw
why
you
not?
blue
But
eyes.
why not? I mean, you don't have to share, but why not ask him why he's sharing that stuff?
I did.
Okay.
I have the tweets. I'm probably gonna mess up exactly what he said, but he was like, "Oh, you know, sometimes I like to post provocative things," and
he's like,
this one was important.
Did he literally say that?
Yeah, but why should? And then I told him, well, why should we take you seriously as an historian then? Why?
He likes to stir the pot.
Because we live in a world. I mean,
I don't want historians to shitpost.
All right, how about this? I don't want
historians
you ever seen
to
pictures
shitpost.
of Einstein? Have you seen the hair? Like, why should we take Einstein seriously
Again,
when he's got the crazy hair?
he's a provocateur. I mean, clearly.
Yeah, he's a provocateur. You told us as much.
Yeah.
He's a provocateur.
I think he's a diehard empath. I think this is another thing about the woke right. And I hear Dave Smith talk about this too, about how Daryl Cooper is like very empathetic. It's like the most empathetic view of history you could possibly have, where you're viewing every side neutrally, and then you can come to your own conclusions. Yeah, I don't think that's an appropriate way to look at history. I don't think it's the way it works.
Do you think
I don't think you can be empathetic to not Nazism, but like the control that they had over the German public. Like you shouldn't empathize with that. You should fear that. You should run away from it. You should condemn it and be like, that's never happening again.
So, but I see what you're saying, but I also see it from a different perspective, because I mean, you just look at the cultural moment that we're living through right now, right?
Yep.
We've lived through like essentially 60, 70 years of seeing Nazis in a pretty black and white way. They're animals. They did horrible things, right? And this isn't to say that they didn't, but just that they pretty much just this black and white prism, right? And that takes completely strips that situation that happened in Germany of any sort of logical understanding of how they got where they got.
Sure.
Right? That because you have to have basically an out-of-body experience to be able to justify murdering so many people in your population like that. The reality is it was a reaction to something that they noticed in their society that they wanted to get rid of. And thus they allowed this man to do these things. And yeah, there was an aspect of propaganda, but I don't want to remove the agency that the German people had, because they made that choice and they kept making it for years. In fact, they fought for it. They killed their own in defense of that.
Very true.
So, you know.
So would you say you're a Nazi empathizer?
No.
Or a Nazi sympathizer?
No, if anything, I'm speaking against it right now.
Right, because you're trying to understand the perspective of why would a citizenry be driven to madness to do bad things? It's almost like
I think madness is incredibly reductive. I think that they made a national choice that they wanted to be a specific kind of society. They empowered one man, and they all ran with it as far as they could. And then when they failed, they were like, "Oh fuck, okay."
Oops.
How do we back out of this? How do we get out of this room? Okay.
Well,
yeah, they were also impoverished.
They all became woke. That's what happened.
No, they
also
lost awfully. they got destroyed.
Yes,
and then they were exposed.
And then they became woke. I mean, Germany. You talk to these Germans; they're horribly
they're pretty
woke.
much
Socialism always follows fascism. I mean, that's what we've seen so far.
But I will tell you the thing that both of those share is that they lacked God. They lacked God because you look. Have you read Cost of Discipleship?
No.
Okay, it's Bonhoeffer, right? He talks about this thing that happened in Germany with the churches that they made grace. He has this thing called cheap grace, right? Whereas you didn't have to really do anything because the gospel was such. All you need to do is just say I'm saved and come to church and do your thing. You don't actually have to work at like inculcating grace, God's favor, God's gift to the world. There's nothing you have to do, so just do it. So it made the church very weak, right? And so what I see a lot of that's happening that with James Lindsay is reacting to is the fact that there's a lot of discussion within the church to stand up and do something, right? Which is Christian nationalism with people like William Wolf or Doug Wilson, that are branded right-wing extremists or whatever, and Jack Posobiec as well. Here he is. He's a Christian. He's a Catholic. You could even call him a Catholic nationalist, because he's a Catholic and he's
Catholics
a nationalist.
I think it's so weird that in America we differentiate between Catholics and Christians. I mean, yes, it's a different tradition, but it's
no. But I'm saying specifically, he's
just like the Mormons, right?
Yeah, I don't diss the LDS.
I grew up Mormon.
I know.
All right. No, but seriously, so you've got this issue with the Christianity has been sucked out of things.
Yeah,
that's what the woke right is trying to say. That's why it's important to notice that James Lindsay is not a Christian, even though he's Christian friendly, even though his main funder is Michael O'Fallon, who is a Christian nationalist by a stretch of the word, at least.
He also agrees with James Lindsay on the weaponization of the term.
Right. Exactly. He does. But he's still coming from a Christian worldview where he's trying to say, hey, turn to Christ. And he's parsing.
Yes, every individual should turn to Christ without the state involved.
I agree.
Even a Jew.
I said every individual.
Everybody
should turn to Christ.
Right. So
without the state involved.
By the term woke right, I could say, well, you sound woke right because everybody.
No, everybody
has to go.
that. No, I qualified that.
You said without the state involved.
Yeah. Well, what makes it woke?
So the only thing.
Wait. Say that because
that is the consciousness. That's where you're saying, okay, we've been oppressed. We now have a new Christian nationalist. Let's just say fascist consciousness, and we're willing to do whatever it takes to usurp that power and inject our own theocracy.
But that's anti-Christian.
Sure, yeah, I agree.
Right. So
is Nick Fuentes. So's Daryl Cooper.
Right, but I'm going to tell you. All right, this is where the slippery slope of the woke right falls apart. Okay, and why the woke right label is actually more dangerous than the supposed woke right themselves. Is because you start getting into this thing where you say, well, we don't want Christians, we don't want theonomy. What is that? Theonomy. Oh. We don't want theonomy. We don't want theocracy for sure, but we don't want theonomy.
What's theonomy? I don't know what theonomy is.
It's where the God's law is the law of the land, right?
Yeah.
We don't want that.
I don't want that.
You don't want God's law to be the law of the land.
No.
God's
do you
law,
want Christians? How about this?
Could I get my nicotine?
Yeah. Do you want Christians to be?
Hold on.
No. Hold on. Do you want Christians to run for public office? Do you want them to talk about their Christianity while they're running?
Yeah.
Then you could be woke, right? Too.
No, I'm not.
No, because now you're advocating for Christians to go in there.
I want those Christians
and own the mountain of politics.
I want those Christians to defend their right to be Christian, but to defend their neighbor's right to be Hindu.
Yeah, but that's inherently Christian. If they're actual Christians,
right?
Do
and
that.
I want them to defend the Nazis marching in Skokie. I want all of it.
Did.
I know.
Yeah.
They did.
Actually, it was the Jews, but yeah.
No, but it was the ACLE.
Yeah.
No. And this is
the guy who wrote the argument was my. He was a professor I had at Michigan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's pretty.
He
cool.
helped write. He helped write the argument. He was a philosophy professor. Anyway, Carl Cohen, very good guy.
Right.
Ultimate libertarian. To the extreme. But it's all free speech is absolutely crucial.
Right. So free speech is absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
So if this guy is like shit posting about the Nazis,
I'm not criticizing him posting the fact
you're
that he
just
posted
saying
it.
why should he be taken seriously?
Yeah,
But that's not what James Lindsay is saying.
No,
James Lindsay
has never
saying
called for
that
censorship.
He's never called for censorship.
Yeah.
He's never called, like that whole thing with Matt Walsh and the swastika thing. He was saying like, hey, you're being put under a struggle session, right? And then Matt Walsh says, yeah, I was put under a struggle session, meaning James Lindsay was putting him under a struggle session.
No.
Absolutely, that's what he meant.
Yeah, that might be what.
That's what he meant.
That's
And
what
then
James-
James
that's what
Lindsay,
James
poor
Lindsay
autistic
meant?
fellow, went, oh, thanks for noticing that, Matt. It's like, I'm talking about you, bro.
He's showing him some grace.
I'm talking about you.
James Lindsay is capable of showing grace.
Of course he's capable of showing grace, so much so that he blocked me and called me a retard.
Daryl
Right,
Cooper,
yeah.
Daryl Cooper, Christian empath, blocked me.
I think
Who
you.
ca-
I
who
think.
cares?
I
After you
think.
guys talked?
No, I think. I think
That's
a new.
wild.
A
Well,
new
I mean, because I
No.
started posting again about him. You know,
a new
negatively,
definition
yeah.
of
Wait,
woke
so he-
right was who has blocked you.
So he slipped. So he slipped into your DMs. So you're criticizing him. He slipped into your DMs, and then you guys got friendly. Then he blocked you again.
And by
After I
getting
criticized him again because he
After you
came out with his new series has a preview, like a trailer to it, and it's all like Hitler and Nazis with like metal music playing in the background. And if I were just like a neutral person viewing that, I'd be like, oh, this is pro-Nazi propaganda. I mean, it's shocking, you know.
Now, hang on. Now you're changing the definition of woke right.
I'm not.
To include the state, because the definition that I read earlier from James Lindsay did not say anything about taking over the state and turning that into a theocracy. It said,
I'm telling you my
it said
interpretation.
taking the means of production.
Yeah, I would say that's the state because that's exactly.
No, that's not the means.
That's
The means of production is the institutions.
Well, that's
like a hospital.
Yeah, but the institutions are part of the state,
a
and that's
labor
exactly what the
union.
Nazis did. That's exactly what the
company.
That's exactly what the communists did on the woke left. That's exactly what the Nazis did on the woke right.
Yeah, it's part of fascism to take over. It's just the state taking over.
But nobody
instead of-
nobody
It's
on
the
the
ultimate
woke
corporate state.
Nobody
Yeah.
on the
It's,
woke.
it's exactly what the CCP is doing. They're Nazi. They're essentially
They
Nazis.
are, but nobody on the woke right is saying, oh yeah, we have to take over all the corporations and merge them with the state.
Well, I think
Nick
that's-
Fuentes is not saying that at all. Kanye West, woke right, is not saying that. William Wolf is not saying that. I don't know anybody who is saying that.
Well, Deneen is kind of saying that, where the entire economy and the entire apparatus should be basically revamped, where the power centers on. Theocracy is too strong of a word because he doesn't say it, but it should be
So
explicitly.
he doesn't say it.
He doesn't specifically.
He doesn't
state,
say theocracy,
No,
but
he
he's
doesn't.
woke right.
No, but he explicitly states it should be based on Christianity.
That's
No, like, but
that's
what-
what our
wait, but
founders
to the point-
basically
wait, just-
said.
But you can
Wait,
still
hold on,
go
hold on.
out.
Is George
but-
Washington
but you
woke
can
right?
Hold on,
no,
just 1 second, just so I can understand something.
Yes.
And you can finish your thought.
you can still do a lot of unchristian things that are still legal. Thank you.
Deneen, what is his role in the?
He's a
movement or-
post-liberal. That's one offshoot in the woke right sphere.
And
Yeah.
what is his influence in that? He's like one of the people who contributes ideas to it. Or
Yeah, he's
one of the-
he's like a high-level academic.
He runs a
philosopher.
Politburo.
He runs a what?
What is it? A Politburo?
Yeah,
That's
something
what
like
he-
that.
Yeah, something like that. He runs.
Gotcha.
I don't know.
He's got
I
like a
don't know.
think tank or something.
He's a philosophy professor and he writes books
Uh-huh.
and he's influential, like Curtis Yarvin too.
Mhm.
Which
So
we
people-
Oh
can
my
both-
gosh, he enters into the marketplace of ideas.
So people
gives
listen
his
to him.
opinions and makes a call for Christianity.
I'm glad they're stating all this, dude. I'm glad they're coming out with all this
Who?
because all these people, because then we can criticize them. That's the power of free speech.
Absolutely, but what James Lindsay, he has the right to do this, but he is using the same tactics that he's criticizing. This whole woke right thing, woke right.
He's not
Christian
canceling-
nationalism is a psyop. Those are tactics. Like when he actually said that to me, like standing next to me. I was like, that is so weird. Why? Because I told him I think I said I'm running as a Christian nationalist
Because you can't disagree with it.
what?
That you're not saying
Christian
that
nationalist is a psyop? That's the
you're not.
stupidest
But no,
thing in
you
the world.
can't disagree with Christian nationalism as a concept. You can't disagree with it, right?
I don't disagree with it at all.
Right, but even if it got corrupted and was used for ulterior motives, you couldn't disagree with it still. It's Black Lives Matter for the right.
How is it going to get corrupted? Christian nationalism is going to get corrupted.
Because it's going to turn into a real theocracy.
Okay, first off, anything
Wait,
that human
how-
beings,
wait, hold
everything
on.
that human beings touch, including liberalism, corrupts.
There are self-correcting mechanisms within liberalism, within this
And
disbursement
there
of government.
are
that we
better
have.
self-correcting
Wait, let me
mechanisms
understand-
in
Let
Christianity.
me understand a couple of things. So your argument is that we should just go with liberalism,
Yeah, absolutely.
and we're gonna end up right back in the woke left.
No,
Yeah,
No.
we're gonna land up in the woke left.
no, absolutely not.
No,
We're-
yeah,
no.
that's-
If we keep going with the woke left, it's going to pendulum swing back to the woke right. What we have right now, liberalism is the only means by which to expose all this stuff. If the woke left would have gotten in control, they would have censored, they would have done all the things that they did try to do, that they did do with like the Twitter files and Hunter Biden's laptop and all the shit they do with the, whiteness is evil and we have to exterminate it, blah, blah, blah. If the woke right gets a hold of that, the same thing will happen. It just didn't come to full culmination because we actually do have liberal tenets in the Constitution that we can rely on.
So
Right,
wait,
but
why-
those tenets come out of Christian worldview.
Yes, we should protect
So,
the Christian worldview.
my
we should
question-
protect Christianity.
Christian
we should
liberalism-
protect, we should protect all of the. Yeah.
follow up.
Yeah.
Why haven't liberals done anything to get rid of the left? Because they've
Liberal- okay,
completely,
you mean
they've
the- okay,
completely taken over.
When you say you mean like centrist Dems,
Yeah.
that's the exact. Why hasn't Charlie Kirk said, "Jack, shut up"? It's the exact same
So
issue.
you think people like Bill Maher, who is more centrist, you think he's the only one I see
He's a
out there
pawn.
speaking.
He's a pawn, just like I think, or he's being
Well,
used like a pawn.
he's the only
I
one
like Bill
speaking
Maher.
out
I
against
like-
Who's
the
using
left.
him?
But he still makes apologies for it. He's like a leftist apologist, but he's pretty centrist. He's got some common sense.
Right, he's not like a John Oliver.
But I would say, yeah. But so there are like different, gradations of how involved you are, knowingly or unknowingly. Like Matt Walsh got used. Matt Walsh, I think he's getting used.
Matt Walsh.
Shiloh Hendricks.
How
Hendricks.
did Matt Walsh get used?
Shiloh Hendricks.
You want my take on Shiloh Hendricks?
I want your take on Matt's take of Shiloh Hendricks because Matt
I
got
thought he
used.
actually
You know
made-
what we're talking
I
about?
thought
with
he
Yeah,
Shiloh?
I know
actually-
Shiloh Hendricks.
Okay, I
Sorry.
actually thought he made a good
Say the N word right now.
Argument.
Do it. Just say it. Just say it, dude.
nig.
But that wasn't
nigger.
That wasn't his. That wasn't. Look,
I know.
That
I'm
wasn't
sorry,
Matt
do you-
Walsh's point.
no, Can we bring
I'm
a black
joking.
person
I'm just
there so
making
I
a
can
joke.
say it?
I'm just making a joke.
No,
I'm
but
just
that-
making a
that-
joke.
Matt
Am I
Walsh
going to get
is-
canceled now?
I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
I
No,
don't
no,
give a-
no,
I don't care.
Or hold
But-
on.
No,
Listen,
Matt
Or
Walsh-
go
Matt
to
Walsh
Gifts and
said-
Go. Emilio said the N
Oh my
word.
God.
Matt
Type it
Walsh-
in there.
Matt Walsh's actual point was that in order to prevent Carmelo, just so people understand at home, because we're moving kind of
Please.
fast. Sometimes we don't explain the concept of what we're talking about. We're just like zooming by. But he said basically that in order to end the woke left's, a cancel culture, right? To end the Carmelo Anthony's being rewarded, you have to have the opposite side of the coin, and it has to be equally profitable to do the opposite. That way, it just kills it.
Yeah,
I think on premise that's just not going to work.
Agreed.
But it's it's a strategy. It's a way. It's a thing to try until you realize it's not
It's a
going to work.
tactic.
Yeah.
And
No,
it's,
no,
and
no,
it's-
no. Actually,
and it's not Christian.
Let me tell you something about
I think he's-
both
I agree.
Shiloh.
I think he
You're
got confused.
profiting-
No, let me tell you
You're
something about.
profiting off of this awful behavior that you should
No,
be
we
discussing.
need to
No,
talk
but
about Matt. We need to talk about Matt.
let me tell you something about Shiloh and Carmelo. This is his name.
Carmelo, yeah.
Carmelo. Both Shiloh and Carmelo were backed by Give Send Go. Give Send Go in their support of those two campaigns and their support of Luigi and their support of
Yeah,
Kyle
free speech.
Rittenhouse.
It's a open,
That's right. They were coming from a liberal worldview.
Carmelo was also Give Send Go. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
They got banned off GoFundMe.
Right,
Got it.
right. That was the problem. Is that right?
I support. I support them putting it out there. Yeah, we should help us during this situation. There's
Right.
nothing. I'm neutral.
Right. So I thought
I'm
Matt
neutral.
Walsh was pretty cogent on the whole thing with the Shiloh thing, saying like, this is obviously a response to cancel culture. It's also a response to the white racism that was inherent on Carmelo's donation feed. And if you actually visited yourself,
I mean, it's kinda
there were
crazy
some
when you read it.
ugly
But why-
things said about
I was
white people on there.
90% of it is like just
it's insane.
racial war. Yeah,
It's insane.
Yeah, it was
And
like a
same with
race war
Shiloh.
on there.
Same with Shiloh. Her comments were pretty similar.
exactly. Yeah,
Right, exactly. But I'm
So
going to tell you,
not-
this
both of them suck.
yeah.
Yeah, except
Objectively.
Shiloh didn't actually murder somebody and is
Yes,
not on
that
trial
is
for
true.
anything. The only court that she is facing is the court of mob justice.
Words are violence. Okay, Emilio.
Sounds like that's something a liberal would say.
I'm kidding.
No,
That's a joke. I
no,
totally
no,
agree.
no.
teasing you now.
You call 911 because you just did something to my heart. You just put it. You call 911. You're absolutely right.
You know what's great right now? I got
What?
3 little kids. My oldest one, he says it all the time. I taught him words. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt
Yeah.
me. Dude, he just says it all the time. And there's this one like bully at his school right now, and he's like, I don't care. Words don't hurt me. I'm like, yes,
Yes, exactly.
yes. Soak it in, child. Anyway, but
I can't wait to misgender yourself. Show you what pain looks like.
Just don't do it in Colorado.
Yeah, that's right.
oh yeah, but yeah, Matt. Okay, but I don't think Matt.
Or do it in Colorado. I don't know.
I don't think anybody should make. I don't think a Christian should say, yeah, she should have made money for like being a total asshole to that kid and everybody. She was just it was a horrible thing to do, categorically.
Look,
How can you say?
Hold
how
on,
can you say,
hold on.
Hey,
Time out.
that
time
guy
out.
made money because
Time
he
out.
killed
What
somebody.
did you just say?
That-
What did you just say about the beauty of liberalism? Is that
I'm disagreeing with him.
no. But he actually made a liberal argument.
He did
'Cause
not.
He did because he made it
He
about free
supported
speech.
her making money off
He
of.
supported her making money. That's capitalism. He supported her
No.
having free speech.
No.
Being
well,
free
look,
from
here-
the woke mob. And didn't you say that
So
not
Kanye-
every
so-
law has to be Christian?
listen,
there's some things that
let's think about it from a
unchristian
non-
things
let's-
that are like
Here, look,
can be
it's-
legal.
It's not Christian
like
because
porn.
It's not Christian because it's based on retribution and vengeance.
Yes.
So that's where that is. And I don't
Should it
know,
be made illegal? Because that could be
No,
that could be
no,
No,
woke
because
right.
I believe
Okay.
in just you have the freedom of choice to do whatever you want. You're gonna face the judgment with God. It's not me. Okay, I'm definitely not giving you money,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that it's a good thing with what you're doing. So yeah, I mean, I
and
just
it's
don't
your
know.
obligation as a Christian to say, hey, this isn't the best thing to do.
Yeah,
And here's why.
I don't know how much of a Christian Matt Walsh is because
He's Catholic.
most of
He's
his comment-
Catholic, so you know.
most
it's
of his
not-
commentary, I don't see him ever reverting back to his Christianity or talking from that point. He usually just talks from the cultural, political point. I don't know how central he makes it about that.
I think it's all central.
No,
for him.
actually, Matt Walsh is he's a very strong Christian.
Like
Yeah,
Michael
but
Knowles, because
I-
Michael Knowles talks about his
Michael
Christianity all
Knowles,
the time.
yeah, Michael Knowles talks about it more in an intellectual kind of framework and everything.
Yeah.
But they both have very similar views when it comes to their faith.
Mhm.
And at the root of their faith is that the importance of their faith. They're both very strong Catholic guys.
Mhm.
Right
I'm not
now.
saying he's not. I'm just
but it
trying
is
to
retribution.
understand. It's absolutely it's politics of grievance. So you're like you're
100%.
mad and you seek retribution and vengeance.
But
by
she
doing
was,
something that's-
wasn't seeking. All right, yes, she was getting money from retribution for the thing, but she was also the core of what she was looking for was safety for her family because she had been doxxed for being on this video.
I absolutely understand that.
Yeah,
I'm saying that the
okay.
motivation behind the movement around her, that's what that was. It was to
Yes.
get retribution for what happened with Carmelo. And with Carmelo was retribution for what happened with, and you talk to any of the people donating with, it was, what's his name? The guy who killed that kid in Florida. George Zimmerman.
Yeah.
It was retribution for George Zimmerman. And they just list all the cases. Kyle Rittenhouse also had a GoFundMe, whatever it is. I don't give a shit. It's retribution. It's not going to fix the problem.
Grievance is the word, and that's exactly what they call. That's what James Lindsay called his whole Sokol Square fake papers was grievance studies. They were making fun of grievance studies. That's exactly what.
So
Matt Walsh is describing.
you're
You
saying
should-
that the colonials, when they wrote in the Declaration of Independence, their list of grievances that was also
That's
woke.
different.
That's out of context.
I think
No,
I
it's
think,
not. That they literally like half of the Declaration of Independence is all a list of grievances
It's
against
not-
King George in Parliament.
So here's the thing. That's
but-
based on righteous anger. What
makes righteous anger different?
in doing that, they created a system that would protect all grievances, individual grievances. Grievances aren't the issue.
Okay, now actually, you guys are now
Collectivist grievances are the issue, not individual grievances.
Those were collectivist issues. They were collectivist issues because they weren't saying like
They
hey,
created
King
this-
George
no, you
did
missed-
this to me. He said,
Emilio.
They have done this to us.
Emilio,
Us. What?
They created the system. Their solution to the system was to create this liberal society.
Right, but
That
it's
was-
a collectivist society.
It is not.
What's federalism?
We have the freedom to collectivize.
Federalism is a collective.
We have the freedom to collectivize
No, but federalism in itself is a collectivist entity.
of state governments underneath a federal
That's
government.
right. It said that.
But it is.
it said, and then it was tested during the Civil
but that's
War.
why we have. That's why we.
Where, it's the famous thing where before the Civil War they said there are the United States are, and after the Civil War they said the United States is. That's a collective.
I think it's a.
The United States, all the states are now a singular noun. Is.
Yeah, but it doesn't change the fact that the United States is founded fundamentally on individual rights and freedoms. It doesn't change that's the central focus of the U.S.
Right. But it's not
And
just.
so,
that's
and when
part
you
of
do
it.
have a
That's
grievance
part of it.
as
That's
an
part of it.
individual, you cannot make that claim through violence. You have to go through a civil method using words, law.
You have to go
courts.
through a due process.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. The Shiloh Hendricks
Where
thing.
did the due process
This
come
Shiloh
from?
Hendricks thing is totally. I mean, obviously, she has the right to raise money. She has everybody has the right to donate.
There
to
was
her.
there
They
was
have the right to collectivize around the N word, but the whole argument he was making was that it's a white grievance against a black grievance. That's woke right.
No, the whole argument that he was making was about cancel culture and cancel culture being itself canceled.
he's making
No.
both arguments at the same time.
Yeah, but that was one of his arguments. I agree with that, but like
It's an
he did
identity-
make that
So
argument.
his
It's an
was a
identity-based
freedom of
argument.
speech.
100%.
You
He's
know what?
getting used. And my whole point in this was
Getting used by whom? Daily Wire? I'm sorry, I had to go there for a second. Who's he getting used by?
I disagree with him getting used.
He's-
'cause
by
I think-
he's getting
Israel?
used.
I'm kidding.
I
Who's he
think-
getting used by? Come
I
on.
think he definitely has personal autonomy. I
Yeah,
don't think
exactly.
Ben Shapiro or anybody from the top is like telling him you have to disseminate
No, in
this
fact,
message.
that's what,
Why-
that's
why
what
was that
Matt
video-
Walsh is getting
why did
upset.
that-
He's saying, I'm getting used.
Why did that?
F you.
No,
I'm not
no, no.
getting used. I'm my own man. Go ahead.
Why did that video get shared so much, and how did it end up in Matt Walsh's feed?
How did it get shared?
Yeah, exactly. Because people latched onto it. The grievance. All these people are getting used. He's not alone.
All right. Who was using them? If you are getting used, that implies that there is somebody using you.
I think there are groups of people.
Groups. Who?
Well,
Project,
I mean,
Project 2025?
No,
I'm kidding.
no,
Oh,
no,
yeah,
no.
exactly. Like these boogeymen that I keep hearing about.
No, it's not boogeyman. We've been dropping names. There's
Jack Pozo is behind.
yeah. I think Poso.
You
not,
think
not
Poso was-
directly? No, I'm not saying
You
directly.
think Jack Posobiec?
No, it's in the
got
ether.
The Shiloh.
It's in the ether. People are hype. It's consciousness. That's the exact thing.
Consciousness is using them.
It's a racialized identity-based collectivism, which is impacting people's consciousness. It's like in COVID where people got mass formation psychosis or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a similar. Same in Germany. Same in Russia. Same in China. Same
but
in Cambodia.
There was no. I will.
Same in
okay, I will tell you. If you're going to say that they got used, there was a group of like 4 or 5 guys who did use the Shiloh thing. They actually did coordinate an effort to spread around the Shiloh.
Yeah,
Hendricks.
and it got spread around, and it
got
ended up
spread around.
It got boosted by the algorithm. Everybody saw
It got boosted by the algorithm.
She's also hot. That did it too. And everybody pushed
What?
it. You don't think Shiloh Hendricks is hot?
Oh my goodness!
I mean,
That's what.
She's pretty attractive.
Man.
Yeah, I wouldn't say
oh
she's not.
gosh.
Yeah, she's She's in a.
He's
Okay.
just
Oh,
messing with you.
No, I'm not. That you went off the ranch with that one.
No, that boosted
Shiloh
the
is hot.
algorithm.
No,
That
no,
boosted
I
it.
know.
People
I
shared
know.
it because of that. People donated because of that.
Because she was hot
She's
and
like,
blonde.
oh, she's a hot blonde white woman standing up for her kid, calling this other kid the N-word. And then
right,
we're gonna give her
fellas.
$750,000.
They
Okay,
did.
hold on,
They
hold on.
did give her 700.
I know, that's
We've
what I'm
been
saying.
going on for just about 2 hours. It's getting to midnight.
Is it?
We should start wrapping up.
All right.
Are we coming back?
We can do another one.
No,
yeah,
that's
we
fine.
can definitely do another one.
No, we'll
No,
come
we'll do
back.
more. I got
No,
more
this
videos.
is honestly. This is he didn't even get to half of his
No.
clips.
Okay.
Here's no, but seriously, I think this is a really important discussion because it's like an intra dialogue problem that is happening on conservatives. And if we don't get our act together to form a consensus, the woke are going to come back in 2026 and 2028.
Woke left.
Yeah, the woke left. That's the
I'm glad we made that distinction.
The
okay,
woke
yeah.
right and
So
left.
this is an important dialogue, I think, that needs to continue. And frankly, it's like I said before, this is probably one of the most intelligent conversations around this issue that is happening right now. Because usually you don't get people talking across the border. You get James Lindsay on a podcast explaining what woke right is, and then you get people saying why Nick Fuentes going off on why it doesn't exist. But you never have people in the room together actually having that conversation. And the thing is that it's not happening in a bubble. It's actually reflecting a whole dynamic that's happening on the right, right? Between everything like, I don't know if you know about the platform fight that happened here in California.
What was that?
It was a platform fight that there was the log cabin Republicans
Oh,
were
I think you mentioned to me.
were
yeah.
trying to remove certain provisions out of the California platform under the pretense that they were simplifying. They were simplifying it, but they took out things about marriage, things, and they toned down things about abortion. They were unsuccessful in doing it here in California in the GOP, but they were successful at the national level, at the RNC where Trump was renominated. They were actually it was the same actors. So you see
It's
that
like Peter Thiel's.
right, and that's happened. That's going to happen in 2026, and that's going to happen in 2028.
And they're trying to protect gay marriage.
Right, which to me is a woke institution. 100%. If you are for gay marriage, you are still a victim of the
Wokeness.
of the woke mind virus, right? And you can be free of it because I don't believe that just because you're a victim, you don't have personal responsibility. But you got to work on that. And that's why I think this conversation is important because it has different applications in different areas, right? And even a lot of these discussions about woke right are they start getting into eschatology. Like the guy who supports James Lindsay has a different eschatology than Doug Wilson, who's a guy, as opposed to a Tim Keller who also got dinged a lot by Michael O'Fallon. So and James Lindsay, right? So this is a very important thing because it's like what I told you in our podcast, that in order for us to be able to save California and thus save the nation, Christians in the church are going to have to stand up and they're going to have to retake their position within culture. All right. And yeah, that might be a woke right sentiment, according to some people. I don't care. I think that's the way.
I don't think there's any issue with anybody on the right, any religious person or ever taking their place in the culture. That's not an issue at all.
Right.
The culture is apart from government structures.
Well, yes and no.
And an attack on liberalism.
Yes and no, because woke culture and in politics are, they're two sides of a coin, right? You pick up something and you pick up the other.
Yeah, we want to get the woke. We want the government to be neutral.
Yeah.
Right, but the government.
I don't want the woke left running the government. I don't want the woke right.
No, but the government can't be neutral because it has to take a moral
stand
stand someplace. It has to even with film incentives, it has to answer the question.
I'm not talking about
every question of government is a moral question.
That's not true.
See, this is part of the conversation that needs to continue to happen.
Not every policy is.
Every policy has a moral framework to it. Stop signs have a moral framework to it.
Well, you sound like Ibram Kendi right now.
I like I'm woke.
Because he wanted like a department of anti-racism that was unaccountable to every other branch of government, because every policy comes down to a moral judgment based on one's identity.
Every policy does.
Every policy.
Not every action in society does.
Well,
but
you
every
sit down
every
to a stop sign. That's
but yeah, but any
yeah. I mean,
a
he would
lot of
agree with
things-
that. Ibram Kendi would agree with that from the anti-racist point of view.
It is because
there can be neutral policies. We can
you
say
can't have neutral policies. How can you have a neutral policy?
Guys, we're
about
gonna
what?
have to wrap this up.
Okay, anyway, that's why I'm.
We can keep
That's why
talking
I'm
for
saying.
hours and hours.
All right.
This is great. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about.
Stop
Please
signs are
like,
not woke.
comment, and share. Like, comment, and share so that we can continue having this important conversation.
Tell people how they can find you. So, Jordan, that's your camera. Emilio, that's yours. So,
Oh, that's my camera.
no, this is yours.
Yeah. Oh,
that's
that
your
one's
camera.
mine.
That's your camera.
Ooh. Oh, side shot. Where to find me?
Yeah.
At Irrational Henry.
On
Irrational
X or
Henry.
everywhere?
Everywhere, yeah.
Cool.
X and Instagram.
Emilio.
Irrational Henry. That's and you're the. How can I take you seriously?
Irrational.
Okay, I'm
I'm
kidding.
actually-
I'm kidding.
do you want
I'm
me-
kidding.
you want me to
I take him
explain my
very
name?
seriously.
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
Really?
Quickly. Yeah, quickly. It'll help people to remember it. Go ahead.
Pythagoras, he started a cult basically on rational numbers and tuning harmonics on instruments. And then when someone realized, hey, you can't actually tune these instruments correctly, you need to have irrational ratios in between the tuning. But he said, no, fuck you. And he ended up killing a guy over it. And then he created this cult where nobody could eat beans. And I'm sure they fucked all each other on an island. But but he created this thing called the Pythagorean comma, which I think is like a very good analogy to like in society when you get, cults that are running the government essentially, or like running like an institution. It inherently tries to fit a square peg in a round hole, so to speak. You can't tune the instrument with your rational tunings. You have to use really irrational numbers where the decimal point just keeps on going indefinitely to get the instrument sounding properly. And I think that's kind of akin to like the common law, the English common law, where we're all trying to figure out reality through basically speech and traditions and norms, of course, some of which are based on Christianity. But when you have this purely rational way of viewing things, it tends to become cult-like, and it creates commas where people are basically wasted. And there's always the individual is lost. The individual cannot be found in this because they're trying to be fit into somebody else's statist worldview. And I'm against that. So I'm an irrational Henry. There it is.
See, that was really
good.
cool. I'm glad you took the opportunity. I did not know that. I thought you were just being. But you know what?
Very well thought out.
To my
huh?
point, you said something that was a little provocative to have a deeper conversation, just like Jack Posobiec. Okay.
Wait, what? Oh, everything
Yeah.
I just said?
Yeah, everything you say.
yeah.
No. But it's a different tactic.
Yeah.
You took the same tactic, I think. But it was really
I
interesting.
didn't.
We'll talk later. Okay.
All right,
Anyway,
just- yeah.
where you can see me, it's not as cool a backstory. It's you can catch me on X at the Emilio Show.
Emilio Show.
TheEmilio show.
So,
Because I'm as Antifa pointed out, I'm a provocateur.
Provocateur.
No, my
filmmaker.
Yeah, my backstory on that is just I had a one-man show there where I talked about all this philosophy and stuff and comedy and singing, and I called it the Emilio Show because I would just be me. And then my wife said to my sister, "Have you seen the Emilio Show?" And my sister said, "I've been watching the Emilio Show since he was this hot." So I said, so it's not as cool as Irrational Henry, but it's accurate.
it's accurate.
It's
Yeah.
accurate.
So is mine.
Okay.
Both accurate.
Yeah, both accurate. Okay.
All right. Well, I am literally fried.
Yeah, you've
my
been going
brain
hard.
is like dead. But this was great.
Thanks
This
for having
was
us on,
great.
man.
I learned a lot. I think it's important to have these conversations just because, like you mentioned, it like you never get both perspectives in a room.
Yeah.
Right. I also think that for some weird reason, and you also mentioned this, there's this there's this race to the bottom on the internet that you constantly have to de-intellectualize stuff. So I'm glad that we had this conversation, and I look forward to having more. I could probably give a better outro if I wasn't so brain dead right now. I'm like 5 cups of coffee. I got here at 6 a.m.
Oh my God.
So it's almost midnight now.
Oh,
So,
wow.
but I appreciate you too.
Thanks, man. This is great.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah. Thank you.